What is going on, everybody? This is episode 586 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett, and I am here once again with my guest co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimelow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. I'm happy to be back with my buddy Brett, co-hosting Pop Culture Crisis today, and I'm happy to be back with all of you.
And Kellen was supposed to be here. Something happened. He's busy. Couldn't come. It's just you and me today.
Kellen told me he hates me, and that's why he didn't come in.
I think that's the same with Dane on Monday. Dane's like, you know what it is I hate you guys, so I'm not going to come in.
I couldn't believe Dane stood us up. I hope he's listening right now and he knows how irritated I am. Because I told him next, whatever week before, like, I'm going to cover for Mary. And he was like, yeah, I'll be there. It'll be fun. And then he's like, sorry, I'm a marketing man extraordinaire. I've got things to do.
I've got stuff to do, okay? I'm busy.
Oh, frankly, I'm sorry that you don't want to be our friends.
I was like, fine, I find that just a bit rude, but what can I do about it? There's nothing I can do about it, sadly. But guys, we got a bunch of stuff to get into today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to hang out here. But before we get started, would you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to this channel, please? If you have not subscribed here yet already, we are past 108,000 subscribers and we want to keep growing. So please go ahead and do that. Share the video with your friends. The more people that come in here and hang out, hopefully they will subscribe. It's like a big multi-level marketing scam, as I always say. We just want to bring people in. And remember, all super chats, $20 and over. We will interrupt the discussion. We will read those super chats right then and there, and then we will do our best to get back on topic. And as you can see at the bottom, the crisis meter has in fact been fixed.
It's returned.
It is back.
That's exciting.
It is. Guys, I was very happy to see this because last week on Friday, it was just giving me just a tiny bit of anxiety. That's the thing. Like, when you do this show, so much of it is regimented that it's like most of the time I'm just doing my best to like stay on task, get through each portion, and not sound stupid, even though I don't really succeed at that all the time, but it does happen. So when something doesn't work, or when something doesn't go according to plan, the hardest thing is like to not freak out about it. Like yesterday, you had to take the call, and I'm like, I don't have a scene set up for just me in this
I felt so bad, and I would never ever do that, except it was like, as I have now apologized and explained to Brett, it was like a semi-urgent thing I had to deal with.
It's like when those things happen, you have to problem solve as you're going. I'm not the greatest problem solver, so I have to work with each segment to try and figure that stuff out as we go. So we're doing it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, number one, as you can see from the thumbnail, Disney Plus is back to doing their Disney propaganda thing where every time a movie doesn't do well at the box office, they then release it on Disney Plus and say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, trust us, this movie did gangbuster numbers here, as a way of trying to continue to promote their business. And I get really annoyed with this. They did it with the Marvels. They're continuing to do it with the movie Wish. So we're going to talk about that. Also, the Streisand effect. If you don't know what the Streisand effect, it's basically what's happening is, do you remember the Romeo and Juliet? Do you see the Romeo and Juliet story the other weekend where they were talking about race and gender swaps for the character, for the Juliet character?
Thank goodness for diversity. I love it.
Well, the point is that nobody cared about that. They cared about the fact that they don't find her very attractive. But all of that internet malarkey has led to this show selling out in under 2 hours and now getting a Broadway run because they made it a bigger deal than it was before they had a problem with it. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about a fun article that I found because first Mary sent me something where it was possible that Netflix created a skip the foreplay button for Bridgerton where you could skip through the spicy scenes. I'm going to let you wait till the segment if you find out to find out whether that button is actually real or not, or perhaps you want to go check on Netflix yourself to see. But also I want to talk about, I read this thing on Twitter the other day. It says Gen Z dating is cooked, and that's my favorite. That is the one, like, I hate it when people say she ate or he ate.
But cooked
I
is
do
good.
like cooked, okay? And I found these two disparate articles. Mary sent me one that was basically Gen Z doesn't want to do first dates anywhere but online. They don't even want to meet in person. But then I found another article that says everyone in Gen Z now wants to meet their spouse or their significant other at work. So what the hell is it? I ask you. As a millennial, I just can't imagine that it's getting harder and harder for Gen Z and then Gen Alpha, as they enter the adult world. So it's going to be interesting to see through all this. So we got a bunch of stuff to get into. So if you're ready, Hannah Claire, we can just go ahead and get started. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. First things first, ladies and gentlemen. The American Society of Magical Bad Movie Names, which I'm not going to read the end of it there, has already been pulled from the theaters. Just 3 weeks. It spent in theaters. It was an unbelievably divisive and racist movie that was racist to both black people and white people.
Really struck out all around.
My high praise for this movie is that I hated it less than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So that's saying something. But it was pulled from the theaters after only 3 weeks. It made a total of $2.4 million, only had a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a budget estimated to be $15 million. I wasn't able to source that information. I never saw any approved budget for this film. But you have to wonder where, like, the racist passion projects that come out of Hollywood, they get a 3-week theatrical run. Like, I couldn't believe this movie went to theaters anyways. I assumed a movie like this would get made.
Who's behind this movie?
So it was a Focus Features film, and it was what is his name? Kobe Libby, who's a first-time director but was also an actor, writer and director. And Justice Smith starred in it. It had David Allen. David Allen Greer is actually great. Like, he's actually probably the best part of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's just the premise of it is too racist to basically. Have you heard of this movie before?
No.
So the premise of this movie is it's a magical society of black people whose job it is to keep white people from feeling anxious or upset, because when white people get anxious or upset, bad things happen to minorities. That's the hook of the movie. And
rough, all around rough.
So it.
Who was excited about it? Was anybody like, wow? Was there like a premiere where they invited like specific types of influencers? Like,
I saw nobody happy about it. I saw a couple of positive reviews. One was actually pretty charitable and looked at it in a pretty fair lens. They interpreted it differently. Other ones, the few that I saw that were positive, really were just like, take that, white people. This is what you get. But if for only $2.4 million, what that tells me is that nobody came out to support it, right?
Yeah,
nobody
that's
went
rough.
to see it. So some people might want to believe that there's justice in the world, and in this case, there probably is, because it didn't get much of a play at all. Lorena Creole says, it was a crap movie with unnecessarily divisive title and extremely insulting to black people. She is right. And Dirty Deep said black people didn't even go to see it. Yeah, nobody wanted to go see something like this, because the theater is expensive, and we'll get into this more later, but it costs a lot of money to go see a movie these days. And the idea of going to see something that's going to put you in kind of a defensive position or an antagonistic position at all just doesn't seem all that exciting to me. And I don't imagine it did for anyone else because they didn't go see it.
I don't really understand who this is marketed towards, so it's very hard for me to understand. You know, you can't really do a crash course in what could they have done better, because it seems like they were mostly trying to play on the frustrations that, you know, black activists express, but also it is sort of pedantic and insulting. And so I don't, again, like, it is interesting to me that this is not just like a small indie film that came out at one film festival. Like, it seems like, but you said there's a studio that you recognize behind it.
Focus Films is a subsidiary of another, but you're right though. Like, the idea would be a lot of times for a film like this to get a wide theatrical release at all is a pretty big deal. And for the most part, I could actually imagine this movie getting made and then going straight to streaming. Like, a lot of movies that aren't big budget films go straight to streaming.
Right.
Now.
If this was buried on streaming and had developed like a weird cult interest group or was debated, I understand, but the fact that this was sort of rolled out publicly it's just weird to me. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but if you had a premiere, who would you even invite to it? It's like you'd have the cast, and then who is like, wow, I'm so excited. You know, even activist Hollywood, what there's not, they only like the obvious lines. There's not an obvious line on this movie. And maybe I should change my tune. Maybe I should get behind this because it just makes everyone unhappy, and therefore it makes you think. Like, I don't know.
What's funny is the number one critique I saw from most people was like, look, you could have just done Black Hogwarts and it would have made $500 million by not bringing up the racial element. Just cast the people you want and tell a unique story. And they didn't do that. They went for a social commentary mixed with like a love story in the middle. It's like a romantic comedy, and it's
doing too much.
Yes, it was too much. But have faith, people. The racist movie failed, and that's a good thing, because we don't want to encourage movies. Sadly, we went to this movie to review it, so like I was part of that.
And what was your take? Were you like, I feel like I've learned a lot, or
no? When I saw it, the number one take I had was that what I've learned is that if I go into a movie expecting the absolute worst, it like arms you against something being really, really bad. The reason why I was so upset with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was because I went into it with minimal to no hopes, but you have to actually go negative. You have to say, this is probably going to be the worst movie ever. And then if you think that way, everything is positive after that. This movie, I went into it thinking this is going to be the worst movie ever. By the time we left, I'm like, you know, it made me laugh in places that I probably wasn't supposed to laugh. Which is, I suppose, a positive experience.
I just don't know. And has the director or any of the actors publicly comment on it?
Not that I saw, not in any big way. The number one thing that I took away from it was the point that I kept making was the problem with it is they make all of the characters that are racist or sexist, because that's actually part of it too. They make them huge caricatures, which is a problem. Hollywood used to be really good, actually, at doing storylines with characters that had bad characteristics, that had racist or bigoted or sexist tendencies, but they tended to wrap it inside a character that was an entire, like a whole person. So that was one aspect of this character. They have these other qualities you may find redeemable, and what that does is create a bigger world for this character where you can explore all aspects of who they are, not just the comical ones that you want to save for effect. And I go back and I watch so much old TV now, and I'm like, wow, it's unbelievable how well they did this character, because they don't play it as if it's the end of the world. They play it as a stain on this otherwise normal person's record, and then you can grow with them. You can grow and change them.
Interesting.
And that's better.
Yeah.
So there's
it's
a $20
not static. It's
exactly.
fluid, right?
And well, also, when you create a character that's that stereotypical, it's usually not they can't grow, because everything will be like a duh light bulb moment that doesn't.
Oh,
feel
we
authentic.
have a $20 super chat. I apologize. I'm falling down on the job. The people's weenus.
Weenus.
Interesting. Have either of y'all seen the 2021 Macbeth movie with Denzel? I think that is an example of race swapping done right. No politics, just Shakespeare.
I haven't, but I did bring that up here the other day that he did do that. And that's the thing, right? The other thing is Denzel is Denzel, and people are going to give you a lot more leeway when you're an actor of the caliber of Denzel Washington.
My money gun is having a rough day.
It was having a rough day
here.
there
You
today.
okay? I have seen that one. And again, I think you're
you
right.
have?
It's just
Awesome.
And because I love Shakespeare. So if you want me to watch a movie, I have seen that one. I think it was really well done. And I think that there are lots of ways to take Shakespeare's classic plays and update them or shoot them through a different lane, that you could potentially have people of different races playing different characters. But I just think so often you can tell by the intentions of whoever is producing it that it is about proving a point that they are more welcoming and diverse and inclusive and whatever else, and that, like, it just, to me, kind of ruins it. I think it also takes away from the actors, right? Like, Denzel is a talented actor and probably was cast both because of who he is, but also because he could carry the role. And I think that there's a difference between, you know, basically, like, I just would hate to be the affirmative action hire over here being like, well, I don't know if I'm actually good, but I have the right skin tone. Like, that's very gross.
Somebody's very mad that we named the play and we didn't say the Scottish play. You're not supposed to do that. It's bad luck.
You can't tell me how to live my life.
Too bad. All right. We shall move on, ladies and gentlemen. So I was upset by this one, and I'm probably in the minority here. Sonic producer says the films are going to become Avengers-level events. Not everything.
I don't understand. This was the movie that they, like, had to go back and redo because people hated the first.
Correct.
I learned that here on Pop Culture Crisis. Yeah. And they're like, but don't worry, it's Avenger level.
So, no, the first two they made, and they're very much smaller stories, and they're fantastic. They're family-friendly movies, and I love them. The problem is, not everything needs to get bigger or go bigger as you make these stories more, right? Like, I understand that for the fans of the game and the world of Sonic that might make sense, but I don't think that the general audience that only remembers Sonic from the Sega Genesis back when they were kids really wants to go to this movie just to see it as like an MCU level film. I think they liked it because it was more self-contained and it told a story that involved, you know, loved ones and families. And I thought that was really, really good. I am looking forward to seeing Knuckles, which is a TV show about a character from it that's coming out in, I think it comes out April. It might come out tomorrow.
They made some huge investment in this, right? They were
Yes.
like, this is our next big thing, TV show, movies, merch, right? Like, so is this one of those examples where it's not an organic Avengers level situation? It's because we have decided that we're just going to hype this up and talk about it nonstop until you guys kind of give in as a consumer?
Feels that way a little bit. Like as much hype as there was around the movie, it was mostly, like you said, it had a lot to do with all of the goodwill that they gained by changing the character design. When everyone said, look at that shit show, I'm not watching that. That doesn't look anything like the actual Sonic. Whereas at that time, people were still very much not a fan of the way Hollywood approached these things, which is when you complained about something, they said, tough luck, we're doing things our way. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Just being listened to by a director and making those changes earned it a whole ton of goodwill. I just don't think it needs to be more than family-friendly films that don't need... Like, I don't need more than Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, and Dr. Robotnik. I don't need it to be an Avengers-level film, and I don't know if it will organically grow that way. I could be wrong, but, a big thing for a lot of these companies, like Paramount, they're all looking to be that next franchise contender that builds this big world that's going to make them a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it necessarily needs to exist. I do understand the argument, though, from those who love the lore. There's a lot of lore behind those characters and those games, and I understand that, but I just think you lose sight of the general audience when you do that. One of my issues with most Marvel movies these days is that the average person doesn't have time to watch 9 TV shows that are supposed to keep you up to date with these really expensive movies.
Yeah.
And I think asking people to do that for something like Sonic, when the Mario movie made more money than Sonic, with less effort. I think it made as much money in its first weekend as Sonic ended up making. Maybe not about that, but it made over $1 billion, right? Mario's a huge franchise.
Yeah.
So,
and I think in some way, I mean, I could be totally wrong. Nobody quote me on this, but in some ways, Mario feels more accessible. Like one of the things that I noticed about the MCU or the DC movies is that, you'll have like adults that are really into it because they read the comic books growing up, but then it's also still accessible to younger audiences. Like it has a wider reach, whereas I feel like Sonic... Is there a video game? I'm not even sure. There is, right?
Yes. It's based
I just
on,
remember him as
from
being,
my childhood.
I remember him as a cartoon character because there had been TV shows and stuff, but they were never super long lasting. Whereas Mario, I feel like that stuck around for a long time and is more accessible. So maybe in some ways it just doesn't have the...
There's still games and there's still lore around Sonic. It's for the Sonic audience, whereas Mario is much more mainstream, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
By mainstream, I mean that the average person will go to the Mario movie and know more than just the original game, whether it's Mario Kart, later iterations, and things like that. But with Sonic, a lot of it is like, I imagine that a big part of the audience was adults who played the original Sega Genesis game as a kid, bringing their kids to go see it.
Because now that I'm thinking about it, the reason I know about Sonic in the first place, I think is just because he was an option on Mario Kart when I was a kid. Like,
was it?
I think I could be wrong, but I think when I was growing up,
but
I don't know. Can someone in the chat fact check me here? Because I swear he is, even now if you play it on the Switch, I think that he's an option.
So yeah, and I do think they're building.
Which means I only know about him because of Mario, which makes that one bigger.
Yeah, I don't think he was in. I think he is.
I think he is.
I don't think he was.
I'm gonna fact check myself.
Somebody could fact check me. That doesn't make any sense because they're different platforms.
Yeah, but rules don't make sense.
Yeah. Somebody says there is a Sonic versus Mario Olympics. Maybe that's what it was. So just keep it away. Not everything has to be Marvel, guys. It just doesn't. Update from WWE. WrestleMania 40 shatters world WWE records as Cody Rhodes wins championship, Universal Championship. I just wanted to mention these numbers really, really quick because I thought it was interesting. It says the biggest spectacle in sports entertainment took place at the Lincoln Financial Field, the home of the NFL's Eagles, as WrestleMania 40 set a record for the gate with 145,298 fans. That's over 2 days, not over 1 day. Piling into the stadium over 2 nights, it was up 78% from WrestleMania 39, which took place at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. WWE said their viewership was up 41% across both nights of WrestleMania, and merchandising sales were up 20%. I always say take these numbers with like a grain of salt because like what can you actually like? I guess it's a publicly traded company, so they couldn't lie about stuff like this. It would be illegal to lie about said numbers.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? So WWE's partnership with Fanatics. Additionally, the company said that WWE has become the highest grossing and most attended fan event in its history. So it was fun. Like I wasn't super into it. Like I'm like very much a passive wrestling fan now. I pay attention to podcasts and I listen
but
to it
Pop
that
Culture
way.
Crisis is going to be at the next
at
WrestleMania, right?
At 41. I'm glad. I want to.
I'm really excited about that
Yes.
thing that no one knows about except for me and you and Sarah from yesterday.
So, and stock for TKO went up. What's interesting about TKO is they're part of Endeavor Group, and Endeavor Group just got sold. So actually, no, that might change things. So Endeavor owned TKO, which is both WWE and UFC, and then Endeavor was just sold to a private equity firm. So maybe they're not. Does that delist them from the stock exchange? Can somebody let me know about that? I'm a dunce when it comes to that.
How does this work?
But I just think that's interesting, right? When it comes to this, if it's no longer a publicly traded company, again, I don't know that. That could change how they have to report information.
If you could have one WWE wrestler on Pop Culture Crisis, who would it be?
Of any era,
Of any era, and then do a current one.
I want to talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin only because I've heard I've literally listened to all the stories, so I just want to make him tell me the stories again. I want him to everyone asks,
and you want him to weigh in on
Yes.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes, I do. Like my favorite is he had to explain to people like why he would carry the championship belt to the ring and not wear it around his waist. And there's no big lore. He just thought it looked stupid to wear it around the waist, and I love that. I want to make him tell me that story.
Yeah,
because he would carry it to the ring and he'd literally just throw it. He would just toss the belt around and treat it like shit, and I love that.
He was like, it doesn't even matter to me. I live my life.
Yep. And current year wrestler Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins is really, really good, and I want to talk to him about the process to get back the curb stomp as his finishing move.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so
Because
you're picking based on people that you really want to talk to,
Yeah.
but is there anyone that you think would be very interesting to get their takes on pop culture?
Oh yeah, a lot of them are into gaming. A lot of them,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them have their own Twitch channels. WWE used to wouldn't let them monetize it back in the day, but a lot of them are really, really into the New Day would be really, really good to talk to about stuff like that. But I want to talk to Seth Rollins about his finisher because he basically had a finisher called the curb stomp, and then they made him stop using it because of the name, and then he got the name, and then he got the move back, and he came back to what
Someone in the chat said American History X spoiled the curb stomp for everyone.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Oh
So.
Man, rough. Okay, hopefully they're on when we take this show to WrestleMania.
That would be amazing. All right, guys. You sent me this. The saga continues. What the hell's going on with Noah Cyrus?
I can't look away.
She deleted her post.
She did. This is so funny to me. So yesterday we talked about the fact that the deep family drama, Noah Cyrus, Miley Cyrus's younger sister, liked a post-workout picture that Miley Cyrus's ex-husband, Liam Hemsworth, has posted. And Noah Cyrus has drama with her sister Miley and her mom because her mom, I guess, married a guy she was dating.
Yeah, Dominic Purcell.
And also, I can't really tell if the mom started dating this guy, literally stole him away from Noah, or if Noah and this guy had broken up. I'm not so up to date on all the details, but she put up this story where she said, she had liked it on Instagram, and on Instagram she then was like, there's no greater joy than seeing all y'all get so angry over the dumbest, can I curse on here? Stuff. It's so entertaining and funny. And then the next one she said, who gives an F? Because she's, the bad girl of the Cyrus family.
She's like, I've got blonde eyebrows. How do you?
In some of these pictures, they're back to being brown, and I think I like it better. But it's just, I think all families have their own types of drama and whatever else, but this family and the men and the social media, because I guess Trish Cyrus had slid into the DMs of Noah's man.
Tish and Noah.
To save their family, they should get off Instagram. That seems to be a problem for them.
Somebody mentioned Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura would be sweet to have on here as a former wrestler and governor of Minnesota.
Sure, but would he like his brother's wife's Instagram photo? Where is the drama?
I could ask Jesse Ventura if he does in fact now have time to bleed. And
oh my gosh, I think I also sent you, I don't know if you pulled it for today's episodes, but there was an article of John Cena talking about how he keeps his marriage to his current wife. He was WWE, right?
Yes, he was.
Look, I know all these cool references. I'm on it. No. We have a $50 super chat. Woo. Hannah Claire, how has your love of Shakespeare affected your journalism? Do you find yourself wanting to be to add color to an article that should be black and white? Has it helped you hone in on humanity of a news story? Is this a dumb question? I don't think it's a dumb question. And I think everybody I think all writers are influenced by what they read. I think the best way to become a better writer is to read more and read the work, read a huge variety of work, not just journalism, but I love literature, so that's worked for me. I think.
Do you have a favorite author?
No, not really. I mean, I go through phases where I'm like, more into one. Like, and everyone's a different category, right? Like, I love reading the Shakespeare's plays, but I also read a lot of Oscar Wilde plays, or like I love, like Truman Capote is really interesting because he wrote these commentaries on social culture, but also, In Cold Blood is like a mix of real reporting and fiction. And so I find that fascinating. And to answer this, I think it's always good. Like one of the best things that Shakespeare did was be descriptive. So when you're thinking about how to use language and make it captivating, how to use language that, sometimes you can pick one really good word rather than writing 10 words. And so Shakespeare makes me think about that. But I try to be really careful not to embellish stories, especially when you're presenting something as fact. You have to be really careful to be like, this is what happened. And maybe when you're writing an op-ed or doing something editorial, you can add more color in a different way.
Do you have you been writing a lot of op-eds? Do you get the chance to do that?
I have a bunch stowed away right now, but it's hard because our news team's pretty slim, and I have to make a decision every day between what's the triage here, what needs my efforts the most. So like nights that I'm doing IRL, or today like I'm pretty lean on Scanner today because I'm doing this. Like but it's definitely something. And Post Millennial asked me if I would write an op-ed for them, and I have one that I've been thinking about, because there are times that like I will cover a story in the news, and I'm sure you could be like, here's specifically what happened with this box office release, here are the numbers, here's what I think this means, but also you have a personal reaction to it. It makes you think about things in your life. So I wrote a couple of
op-eds for the website, and I was like, bro, I'm too busy.
It's hard. And I think also I would rather write an op-ed that I feel really strongly I have put good work into, but then you can kind of become a perfectionist about it and be like, this is exactly the way I want it to sound. Does this, it kind of creates its own pressure, Yep.
All right. So, Tish, Noah,
I like that question. I thought that was fun.
That was good.
Okay. So back to the Miley Cyrus Noah drama. Families are so weird and complicated already, and then to add this level of like public scrutiny, and you're liking this person's photos, and she's saying this to whoever, and then your mom married your maybe boyfriend who also was like significantly older than you. Like I can't keep up with it all. But it was interesting to me reading this thing about John Cena, who was like, I intentionally keep my relationship private, whereas it seems like this family almost needs their relationship to be public for the fodder.
I guess it's just because the kids were involved from the start, right, when they were younger.
And not to comment on...
John Cena was, I don't know if he ever married Nikki Bella, but he was with Nikki Bella.
And there was a moment where he was like publicly pleading with her to like come back to him. I don't even know who any of these people are, but
Nikki
I know
Bella was also a wrestler, her and her sister. And that was the whole thing where they were together for years, and then he's with somebody who's just not in the spotlight.
Yeah. So. And I think that was an intentional choice. Like, I think about Dolly Parton, right?
Yeah.
Like Dolly Parton's, you wouldn't even know. And I think probably like you're a semi-public figure. You've had to think about this too in your life. Like, are your romantic relationships public? Are they private? How do they affect things? At what point are you just living your life and you're doing whatever? Or at what point is it something you protect?
What was the funny story we did about Dolly? Saying she was in an open relationship, but it wasn't an open relationship or something like that, and she didn't know what it meant.
Oh, that's funny.
She's just kind of a boomer.
She's just living life.
Yeah, and let's face it, everybody loves Dolly Parton.
Yeah, Dolly Parton's great.
All right, guys. This is a very interesting story. Internet finds husband who ghosted wife and kids in less than 24 hours. Did you see this?
Hold on. The Crisis Party loves this story. They're excited about it.
It does.
I like this noise.
Cheryl Axis, don't say the Bellas were wrestlers. They were models. Yes, I know, but by generic terms, they were...
And I think, I could be wrong with WWE, but some of the WWE girls, not that I've watched that many, do seem like they are living model life as opposed to living wrestler life.
Nah, they're more
Some
athletes.
seem like they're wrestlers first, and then they can kind of become model-esque on Instagram, but some feel like they were like girls who were interested in modeling and then were like, I'll try WWE.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That used to be more common. Like, it was very common back in the day. They would just find models and try to turn them into wrestlers. Now, a lot of them are actually really, really good.
Can you imagine starting off being like, I'm going to be on Vogue, and then turns out you're like super successful on WWE?
That's fine.
You just can't pick how life works. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to stop talking?
No, it's funny because that is what it used to be, where they just you don't know where your life's gonna go.
I think that's how life works right now.
So the internet finds husband who ghosted wife and kids in less than 24 hours. Let's look at the original post from her.
Fantastic use of the internet, I will say.
It says, I'm really about to test the power of Facebook with this one. This is my husband, Charles Withers. He loves to be the center of attention, but I'm not sure how much he's going to like this. Last year when I was pregnant with our youngest baby, he decided that being a husband and a dad wasn't the lifestyle he wanted anymore, and he ghosted, like gone, without a trace. He has one baby he hasn't seen in over a year, and one he hasn't met, that he's never met. He's moved somewhere out of state and changed his phone number. Divorcing someone who's completely
crazy.
Divorcing someone who is completely unreachable is really tough and drawn out, so I'm trying to track him down to get his signature on a few papers so I can finally close this chapter of my life and move on. Isn't this kind of what happened when with the dude from Transformers?
Beyond my wheelhouse, I have to say.
And he's like in Reddit found something in like less than an hour.
Look, I was sort of hoping that this guy, when I saw this like initial post going viral, I initially was hoping that he was like full amnesia. He couldn't recognize anything. Like, I didn't want it to be that he was just like, oh, I don't like it here. Complete ghost.
So he says, she says, I've heard he's going by Charlie now. He's British and charming as AF. He's a chef and probably working in the hospitality industry somewhere. He's probably never mentioned a wife and kid back in Massachusetts. If you know him, if you're working with him, if you're dating him or friends with him, can you please have him get in touch with me or let me know where I can find him? All the girls out there, feel free to share. A friend of a friend of a friend has got to know where he is.
It took,
thank you. It was 4chan, not Reddit. Thank you.
4chan did this?
No, 4chan did it with the character from.
Okay. Yeah. I was hoping 4chan.
Shia LaBeouf. Oh my God, the name wasn't coming to me today.
Oh, with the flag in the video.
Yes,
that was amazing. That was like the best. I wish 4chan had also saved this one. That would have been even funnier.
Oh man, this is gonna be a rough day if I can't remember Shia LaBeouf's name.
Look, we're fine.
Okay, so in less than 24 hours, they were able to find this guy. Let's go ahead and look at this video of this lady talking about it.
It hasn't been 14 hours since Ashley McGuire made a Facebook post asking the world to help find her missing husband, Charlie Withers, who she believes just abandoned his family, 2 children. It's been a year since he left town, hasn't contacted the family. What the heck, Charlie? Where are you? Last thing we know, he had opened a restaurant in Massachusetts where he was the chef, sold a crap ton of gift cards, and then just took the money and closed up shop, leaving all the customers and employees out in the dark with unpaid wages and unusable gift cards. A lot of people are like, what in the heck is this foul play, and why isn't she worried about his safety? I don't know the answer to that. It just appears that she kind of knows he's abandoned the family.
He was a scumbag.
And since the post has been on the internet less than a day and we already have an update, it's kind of looking like that's the case. Texas-based Are We Dating the Same Guy group. This girl's like,
I love that that's a group.
Because this is what the internet has done to us.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I matched with him on Bumble just a few weeks ago. The audacity. I really hope that he is found safely and quickly, but good Lord, this is a wild ride.
Okay.
Like I said, I initially was like, come on, Charlie, have amnesia. Don't be this guy. But instead, apparently he's on Bumble somewhere else. And it is interesting that, like, that wasn't her concern. She wasn't like, he is missing. She never filed a missing persons report.
Did he take his clothes with him? Does that signal?
I mean, like, she wasn't like, it's been a year, so I'm going to see if he's missing. Like, she knew that
I wonder about that
intentionally
sometimes.
left.
Like, when people, like, when they say somebody, like, abandoned me, I'm like, how do you know that something didn't just happen to them? Like, I guess the only way you'd know is if they took their stuff with them.
Yes. Okay. So 2 thoughts here. If you're into true crime and you ever listen to the podcast The Deck, which talks about cold cases, and a lot of them are like, because they're cold cases, they're missing persons, but maybe the person is now presumed dead, and it'll be like, how do you know this person isn't a runaway? Because that's often, especially with young people, how they get classified. And it's like, she didn't take her purse. She didn't take her wallet. She didn't take her ID. We don't think she just disappeared.
Then all the dude needs to do is
she didn't even take her shoes. And you're like, oh, maybe this person is like, so it makes me wonder, like, there are cases where people don't come back and maybe they're like, oh, he left me, but maybe also they just like something bad happened. I hate to say that, but with this guy, power of the internet, amazing that they were just like, oh, I know exactly where he is. It also made me think about, sorry, I have many thoughts on this. There's another podcast called Something Was Wrong. And I haven't listened to it in a long time, but they were doing, it's kind of like people call in and she'll anonymize the stories. But one of the seasons was this girl saying, you know, I was dating this guy, and basically I found out he was living a double life, including the fact that he had lied about being British. She had a kid with him, and like just everything she knew about him was fake, right? Like
she's like, the kid came out and he didn't speak in a British accent.
No, this guy was like, I'm a doctor, I work at a local hospital, I'm British, and it turns out he was like Hispanic, definitely not a doctor, also had a second family, had a kid before, like the internet, and they had matched on a dating app. I have this weird fear of dating apps. They work. I know people have had long and healthy and safe relationships with them, but man, the internet's a terrible place.
So my initial thought was like, some evil person is going to use this to track down somebody that they want to track down to harm.
Yeah, it is nefarious. It could be.
Like this. There's anybody can tell you any story. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm saying that someday some really diabolical person is going to be like, this person owes me child support, and they
right.
abandon
If you
their
get
kid.
your sob story out first,
dude.
but what if it's actually you have a restraining order and like all the stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
I guess, is that a violation of a restraining order? Searching for someone on the internet?
Like that was the scariest thing to me, is like the internet's already like the most powerful search tool you can find, and then you crowdsource it and more, and really, really dangerous people have an avenue of crowdsourcing their way to find people that are trying to not be found.
Right, because what if it was the opposite? What if he was like, I'm trying to find my wife, like she left and this, that, and the other, and
Would
then
anybody
actually
help him?
he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. There was a story that went viral a couple weeks ago where, or maybe months, a year ago, time is so weird, this girl being like, when I was a kid, we went on vacation. I made best friends with this girl, and like, I just wonder where she is. And the internet found her, and she commented on the post being like, hey, I heard you were looking for me, which is kind of cute, you know? But also, what if it's just like a stalker? Or like, what if you don't want to be found by that person?
My brain always goes to the worst possible outcome
Yeah.
for something like this. It does speak to the power of the internet.
I mean, and this girl has photos back up that they were
Yes.
married. They're obviously a couple. Like, this is a very pretty, like, unusual thing to be like, hey, he's been gone for a year. I know nothing bad happened to him. So where is he?
Like with my luck, what would happen is I would forget my wallet the day something bad happens to me. You know?
What do you mean? Like you?
Or no, like
you
like,
want to forget your wallet because then people are like suspicious, left without the wallet.
Yeah, like
it'd be the one day you remember your wallet,
Yes,
and they're
exactly.
like, "Well, he took his wallet, so he must be gone forever."
He ditched me forever, and really, what it was is that something bad happened to you. I just I see these stories, and I'm like, is the internet really that powerful? It absolutely is. Are there more stories like this? It feels like this would be more common these days.
Well, like I said, there was this.
You like true crime, right?
I like true crime, and like I said, there was this podcast that said, sorry, now I feel like I have to check to see if that's on me. There was this podcast that talked about how this woman had been duped based by someone she had met online, and something was wrong. I think it's like semi-left leaning maybe, but it is interesting to hear all these things. So if you're into this kind of like look into human psychology, I definitely recommend checking it out. The stories of people being like, oh, I met someone on an app and they told me all this stuff and I believed them. And then actually it turned out everything was a lie. Like, I have heard a lot of those. And some are to a more extreme scale. With this guy, I don't know if they met on an app, but it is interesting that someone would just like take off.
But he had
right?
like a business. He
had a business that it seems like he ended in scandal.
with employees. Like,
and then he was just like, I'll see you. Also, like, this guy has kids. You want to just disappear on your children? Like, that seems...
he's a bad
Seems
person.
not good to me. Yeah, he seems like a bad person, and maybe the internet should find him.
Assuming that the story is true, that's bad. And even it seemed like the lady who made the video was kind of like cautioning. She was, I hope this guy's found safely.
Well, and she pointed out, like, it is interesting the wife wasn't like, he's been missing for a year and the police have no lead. She was like, he is missing, so if someone could just tell me where he is. I think he's going by a new name. Like,
I need him to pay his child support.
Also, is she going to do a follow-up Facebook post? Are we going to get more info? Is he going to respond?
Let's hope, right? I saw this and I was like, this is the world we live in these days. Everything's too connected. You can't. I was talking to someone recently about. We were talking about the idea of cancel culture and because it's as a topic, you hear the word or the phrase so much that it starts to mean nothing the more you hear it. But gone are the days where you could just like, if something bad, like if you did something bad, you could just pick up and move and start over. You can't really do that anymore in the age of the internet unless you live your life completely offline. And even then, especially if the law was involved, there isn't really a way to just pick up and try to start over somewhere else. Your past and your choices, or what people perceive to be your choices based on whatever narrative there is around whatever you may have done, may or may not have done, will follow you wherever you go.
It's interesting.
Like there's not really a way around that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Bad choices, guys. There's a thing going around called the Fireball Challenge on TikTok, and I just don't want you to do it.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea. This is a social media trend that started on TikTok, and several children are going to the hospital over it. It's literally called the Fireball Challenge, where kids are using an aerosol can or rubbing alcohol to create a fireball and filming their reactions for it. Don't do it.
The internet loves a reaction
Just
video.
don't do it. Like a 12-year-old boy had to go to the hospital, and it kind of reminds me, this was happening many years ago when the choking game became a thing.
I remember
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And people were doing it to cut off oxygen supply to their brain. And it's one thing, like I see a lot of people, when you see things like this and you see comments that are like Darwin Award, I'm like, it's a child. Like, it's like, these are kids. Their frontal lobes are not even fully developed yet.
Yeah.
Like, these types of trends are extremely dangerous.
And all of their hormones and brain development are telling them to take risks, right?
Yep.
Like that's one of the problems with all of it. Is just like the idea. People talk about how young people feel like they're invincible, right? And so they're like, nothing could happen to me, or I'll just drop whatever I'm holding and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Nothing could go wrong. Things that happen, bad things happen to other people. That is unfortunately actually just a phase of teenage development.
Yeah.
That's why we have to caution them against this.
I don't know if there's anything you can really hold on, guys. I'm fixing it.
Brett's dealing with some tech issues. What a fun guy.
This is it's called multitasking, guys.
It's called Brett's entire job. I felt that when I was on when I sang out at IRL last night. I was like, yeah, shout out to Brett for doing all the work because I actually can't help with anything.
Yeah.
I'm useless over here.
Oh, somebody mentioned the milk crate challenge. Remember the milk crate challenge?
No.
Okay, so what people were doing is you put one milk crate down, then two, then three.
Everyone who lived near a dairy
then
farm?
4, and then 3, then 2, then
You make
1,
like a little Olympic pedestal?
and you walk up it and you try not to fall, and everyone who would do it would just get wrecked because they would tip by the time you get to that 4th level. It's just wobbly and tips over. And one of my
that one doesn't seem as dangerous, or maybe I'm misunderstanding.
It's really, you get really hurt doing it.
Yeah.
But my favorite was somebody was just like, when the cop pulls you over for a DUI and pulls out the milk crates.
Oh my gosh. Okay, $20 super chat from Elizabeth Schuster. Thank you for this daily show. It means a lot to me. I tune in right away when I get home from work. My life really sucks right now, and you guys help me drown out the chaos and relax for a couple hours. Thank you again. Dude, sorry your life sucks right now, but so glad you could join Brett and Mary regularly. That's great.
Yeah, first things first, I'm sorry that things aren't going for you very well, but thank you so much for those words. That does mean a lot to me, because I really do. I always say the biggest compliment you can give me is that you put this on in the background and you clean your house or you make yourself dinner and you let us half entertain. You don't even have to fully be entertained, just half entertained by us. If you do, that means the world to me. So thank you so much for that, and I hope things get better.
I hope things get better too. And also, don't pull a restaurateur Charlie over here and just ghost into the night. I know it's tempting, but don't do it.
Don't do it. It's a bad idea. All right.
The internet will find you.
They will find you. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on over at Disney again. So if you remember the movie Wish, it came out at the end of the year last year, and it didn't do very well at all. It bombed at the box office. It lost money. And now what's happening is the movie is coming out on Disney Plus, and Disney is doing the thing that they always do when one of these movies doesn't do well and then comes out at the box office afterwards, which is they claim that everyone's watching it and that it's doing really, really good numbers. I'm not here to argue about whether that's true. I fully believe that a lot of people will tune into something like this to see it at home. My problem with this is that it ends up becoming like a weird type of either propaganda to get Disney Plus, or it's blatantly ignoring the fact that as a company, Disney isn't doing their job in making movies that actually get people out to the theaters. right? So I think back to all of the sequels that they used to make for Disney movies that never went, like Simba's Pride,
right?
Like Lion King 2, they did the sequels to Aladdin and stuff like that, and none of those were ever released in theaters. And it feels like so much of it now is that most of these movies, they don't feel like they were actually made to be seen in the theater. It feels like it's just content, and that's where I think of things are differently now. A lot of people don't think of it as entertainment; they just think of it as content to dump somewhere and then go watch at your leisure.
Yeah.
They did this, so they were doing this with the Marvels as well. They were talking about how when the Marvels came out on streaming, it was doing all of these numbers and everyone's like, oh, it's actually really good. The problem is you have to find a way to help. We can argue about whether the movie's good or not. That's not the point. I thought it was meh. I didn't like it, right? But that doesn't mean you're not going to like it, but Disney's not doing its job if they're not finding a way to get you excited enough to go see it in the theater.
Right. I totally agree with you. I think that is a component of it all. The other part of this is just looking at this headline. When they say Wish has 13.2 million views on Disney in 5 days, maybe this is deeply cynical, but views doesn't mean people actually liked it. Does views mean that like it auto played after something because Disney set it up to, and 13.2 million people didn't hit the stop button in time?
Correct.
Or
Also,
slept through it because streaming keeps going. You know what I mean? Like I feel badly, sometimes you want to fight off being too cynical about everything, but in this case, I feel like you have to be skeptical of the platform that says, well, it turns out when it was on a platform that we had complete control of and people pay for, it did really well. But you have the ability to influence those numbers in a way that makes me think that it's inflated. And
one of the things about movies being as expensive as they are to see now is that I feel like you're actually more likely to get a strong audience score because the barrier to entry is so high that you're not going to go see something unless you're pretty sure that you're going to like it anyways. And unless you have the wool, the wool completely pulled over your eyes, the rug completely pulled out from under you, I feel like audience scores stay pretty above average or like 70s and 80s. I guess that's about average, right? I feel like most movies these days that you're not seeing a lot of 40s for movies like this. You're seeing a lot of, and this one was low. I think it was in the 60s. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. But the point is like for a lot of movies, when I go see it, I say the audience score is going to be average to a little bit above average. The critic score is going to be reflective of more of an average number because it costs so damn much to go to the theater anyways. The people who are going to take the time to go review it online are probably going to have a stronger feeling about it. And when it comes to stuff like this, all it says to me is that you made something that people weren't willing to pay more than $8 a month for, along with everything else they're selling. It costs a lot to go to a theater. You're paying hundreds of dollars if you're going with multiple people.
You're investing your life savings in this experience.
Yeah, like if you're paying $17 a month so that you can watch everything on Disney Plus, saying that somebody watched this movie while they were also allowed to watch everything else is on there isn't really a compliment to me. But they keep doing this as if it's going to artificially inflate the image behind the movie. Either, I don't know if it's because they want to help this movie get a sequel or make another version of it. I think it's like justifying making the movie to their boomer shareholders or their boomer board, right? Yeah. Like they're like, no, but look, it actually did get the views, and you're unable to distinguish the difference between like actually performing well versus, being auto played or getting some sort of like workaround number. So this movie, I think it cost like $175 to $200 million before the marketing, and it only made like $254 million at the box office, which is something they have to split 50-50 with the theaters. So it lost at least $100 million. So that, right? Like, again, so you would have to say to someone, whoever ultimately makes the decision, would be like, how are we spending the money? Like, no, it was worth doing. Yeah. And I feel like another problem is that for a long time, they were releasing their Disney animated movies in theaters, and they were releasing their Pixar movies on streaming. So what's happened is it seems like the opposite of what you should do. I feel like Pixar movies are designed to be watched in surround sound, yeah? So like it feels like they're training their audience to stay home, but that's a shrinking market cap. What I've seen for the most part with most streaming services is they've reached their edges, right? You're not going to have these big like growths in subscribers that you were having during COVID when
Right.
everyone was investing in streaming because they didn't have anywhere to go and they had to be stuck at home. They've reached their general cap for
and
where they're going to sit.
It's almost like they need to, like, when are they going to come outright and be like, look, we're not even sure it's worth us releasing in the theaters by like you're saying during COVID when people realized they had to stay at home, they spent money differently. Like they bought the Peloton bikes. Pelotons crashed afterwards when gyms
forgot about
reopened.
that, yeah.
Right. So like, what if Disney? Maybe it's too public of a breakup to make because they want to stay in good graces with big theater. Big theater.
Well,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have this whole theory now and it's bubbling in my brain. What if Disney was like, look, we don't actually need you to go to the theater, and in fact we're going to start sending 1,000 people. We're going to start, when you buy our Disney Plus, we're going to send you special speakers to put in your living room to create that surround sound event. Like, what if they just started really directly competing and saying, we can enhance your experience at home and it's not worth us releasing in theaters, so we're just going to double down at the at-home streaming platform. Like, at what point will that be how they move the business along? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that would be the logical conclusion for a lot of people because people aren't coming out to the theaters unless it's something they really, really want to see. And the problem is they use excuses. They use COVID as an excuse. Like they're pretty much still using COVID as an excuse, talking about how numbers never return to pre-pandemic numbers, despite the fact that movies like Spider-Man No Way Home and Top Gun Maverick proved that if people really want to see something, they will go see it.
And I think, and this is me commenting anthropologically on something I am not, so I feel like you tell me, but people who love the theater experience, people who believe in the experience of like getting your popcorn and going and like the whole thing, they are the ones that Disney is sort of on the fence about, right? Whereas generally someone who likes going to theater will still stream movies, whereas like I never go to the movies. I will maybe stream stuff. So at some point they're going to have to start trying to court the theater lover to win them over to the streaming experience if they're going to start exclusively releasing movies they want to do well on streaming.
Yeah, and that's the problem, though. This was a theater release, and it just didn't make the money that they wanted to. And it's very hard to justify.
Is it a kids' movie? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So the other part is like, are children available? Like, when do children go to the movies? You know what I'm saying? You either have to really win their parents to buy them tickets, or you have to say children's movies are more likely to be streamed for children at home.
Yeah. The thing is, like, for a price tag of $200 million, probably closer to $300 million or more after marketing, you have to ask, how do we make our money back? Because you're not making it.
Who sets these budgets?
You're not making it back by getting all of the same people who are already paying for Disney Plus to just watch it on Disney Plus. You have to increase your revenue in other places. And that's a problem when you're making stuff that isn't bringing people to the theaters.
Right.
And the same thing happened with Captain Marvel. It bombed at the box office, and then by the time it came out on streaming, people were like, oh, this movie isn't that bad. So you've destroyed your brand by diluting all your companies. There's no goodwill left with Marvel. Lucasfilm doesn't have any goodwill left because Indiana Jones 5 bombed at the box office. And people are generally feeling very meh about all of it. Well, you can't get people to the theater when there's no goodwill.
Is there a marketing research firm that is studying this? Like, what is the difference between, like, what gets someone to the theater? They just, like, with the Marvel event, like the multiverse type superhero movies, they're invested in the characters theoretically, right? They want to see it, but then like everybody else, why would someone opt to watch something in the theater versus stream it at home? Like, what I want to know, there has to be like data that could apply to this.
Like the movie we were talking about earlier, there's some interesting examples of movies that very clearly should have gone to streaming that get theater releases that don't do very well. But there's also movies like Five Nights at Freddy's, which was released both on Peacock and in theaters in the same day and made like $100 million, made a lot of money in its opening weekend and did really, really well. And then it's like, well, who is this market? This is for gamers, and it's for a younger demographic that's untapped right now, and it did very, very well. As far as like actual like research studies on this stuff, I don't know what it is, and I think that Disney for the most part is too conceited to actually admit that they need to change their course of action anyways.
Yeah.
And I look at this stuff and all I think about is like, it's this weird Disney Plus propaganda where they're like, come to our platform. I'm like, well, but you need them to go to the theaters first if you actually want these movies to justify their existence by making their money back.
Yeah.
So
I just can't imagine like the Disney executives being like, you know, it's a great idea. Let's invest $200 million in this. And then the other one's like, no, 300 million.
Yeah. And those budgets have only gone up. And a lot of it.
In these economic times, you don't think any of them are like, look, maybe we'll just start on a small project, guys, and see how it goes.
Was there not at least one like non-coke snorting executive who's just like, in this economy?
I do remember this was a long time ago, but one time I was like, it's a money laundering scheme. They're just kicking it all the way up to see what happens.
Yep, a lot of people think that that's absolutely true. I think for
it
the
has
most
to be
part,
true, yeah.
that for most of these things, it's like no matter what happens, and I talk about this a lot. It's like it never feels like anything changes. No matter how many flops come through, it doesn't feel like they ever make any changes. But Disney did. So this year they said we're going to make less movies. And we're going to focus on quality. Now, nobody actually believes that they're going to focus on qualities, but if we're talking about making less movies, I'm all for it.
Yeah, fewer movies for sure.
Fewer movies and focus on making those better. I just don't have any faith that Disney will actually do the work to try and make the movies better.
Which also means if they're not doing the work to do that, then they are still making money, right? Like Disney hasn't posted a loss yet, so whatever decisions they're making.
Disney is like their stock took a hit, and their
stock took a hit, but they're not like about to declare bankruptcy.
But they lost billions this year, and this was the 2023 was the first year in like 15 years where they didn't win the box office, where Universal was the #1 earner at the box office in 2023, not Disney. So. These were some of the takes where it says, finally watched Disney's Wish. It was really bad. I kept waiting for them to tell the villain was lying about his backstory, but he was just a traumatized dude who built an entire city dedicated to protecting people who got imprisoned for no reason. Yes, the villain was really, really bad. Like their characterization of the villain was really, really bad.
What do you mean? Like he just wasn't villainy enough, or he was a really bad guy?
He was literally misunderstood. And when he would make his arguments for why he can't grant everyone's wish, every sane person's like, that makes perfect sense. But then it just turned people off. It was stupid. I just think it's interesting because all of these companies, every day I read articles from a different site, a different shill website that says, this movie dropped on streaming and is like the #1 movie in the world. I'm like, and nobody cared. Right now, when they say
that's why I doubt the data. How can it be the #1 movie and also no one cares about it?
What was the number? It was like 15.3 million. There are episodes of television shows like 5 to 10 years ago on network television that got that in one night.
Yeah.
And that's with advertising to make money on.
Yeah. But people were concentrated then, right? Like several decades ago, you weren't competing with every other thing, right?
Well, the problem is like back then, like now when they put these on there, a lot of them have an ad tier, but not everyone's watching the ad tier. A lot of them are still watching it. They've paid the full price for Disney Plus. They're not going to have ads showing on it. Wouldn't it be better to put it on a television network where they can then play the movie abridged and you can get 2 hours worth of ad revenue out of something like this? But Disney doesn't want to work with companies outside of Disney. And I feel like if they were actually to license this stuff out, they could actually make some of their money back, but they're not going to do that. All right, let's go ahead.
So weird. I don't understand this business model at all.
No, it doesn't.
Do you think you could ever get like a former Disney exec on the show who's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
I would love
I want secrets from the Disney accountant's office.
All right, what would you like to see, cringe or cute of the day?
I don't know. What does the chat say?
I don't think the cringe is super bad today. So maybe
I don't think the cringe is super bad today. Have you been through some stuff, man? You've been
watch
traumatized in the past.
We watch a lot of cringe here, so I don't think it's super bad today. So maybe we'll do cute of the day first today. We'll switch it up.
Okay.
All right, here we go, guys. First things first from Corey, first ambassador to the moon, says, me and my boy Barley chilling with full bellies. Tell Phil that remains I said thanks for the shirt idea.
Oh.
Hold on, let me go.
What does that say?
There you go. The F in communism stands for food. Get it?
Oh.
That's good. That's clever.
That dog is so cute.
It is.
That is like a general contractor or who hangs out at the local hardware store dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's a great dog.
All right. Let's do one more here. This is from Dead Man. Let me go here back to this one. It says, this is baby Ruth with pics and videos of her first day in her new home, adopted from a shelter that had a tendency for candy-named pets. You can talk to her new mom.
That's an adorable... What?
It's like talking.
Is that the cat currently?
Let's see.
What? Oh, baby kitten. How old is that kitten? Like 8 weeks? A baby.
She's very, very tiny.
A baby.
Yeah. Let's go one more. Oh, one more video. Whoa. It's very happy.
It looks like it's too small to be away from its mom. It must have been abandoned, right?
Must be. Adopted from a shelter, so. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's the craziest thing to me, that you, like, cats are very self-sufficient, and when they have babies, from what I know, like, you just, like, they can kind of handle it on their own, but the babies need to be with their mom because the mom teaches them how to just exist, like how to clean themselves, how to be a cat. And if you separate them too early, or if, like, you know, God forbid the cat mom doesn't make it and can't be there, they encourage you to graft a kitten to another mom so they can learn all the skills.
Okay. Well then,
I'm not a vet. Somebody please correct me, but man, cats are crazy.
All right, let's go ahead and look at Cringe then today, ladies and gentlemen. I saw this and it was just like, what the hell is this? Zendaya stunned. It was the language. She stuns with a giant croissant at the challenge.
I don't understand
what
this.
the hell? How do you stun with a giant croissant?
And I mean, I think they're trying to say like she looked good, but I'm trying to understand, was the croissant
It was
for
like,
real, a real croissant, or like was this a bag shaped
I have
like
no
a croissant?
idea, but here's the video of it.
It's real. It's the real one.
It's real.
The real one. So you have croissant girl tonight. Is there a better title? I don't think so. But it's really good.
Is that Cringe?
That's one of my favorite things about women. They'll be like, oh, you're drinking a Diet Coke tonight, so you're a Diet Coke girl tonight. Oh, you're paying your taxes, so you're a taxes girl tonight.
It's a tax girly.
You're
call
a
it
tax girly.
Yeah.
That is the funniest. I mean, like, but why did she do that?
So I guess
Because she's in France, she's trying to relate to the locals?
that must be. Like,
Stop, that's rude. That's
she was about to tip and they said, don't you dare tip in France.
also, it's not like it's like no one has burned the like brand of this bakery in. It's not like when she's holding it, someone's getting credit.
You could have, there could have been a great branding opportunity if the top of the croissant
Also,
had
good croissants are flaky, right? So she's sitting there during the premiere just like eating it, and it's like getting all over this white top. Bold, brave, crazy.
That's the best version.
I think it's Cringe, but I also like,
Yeah.
it's so open-ended. I don't really understand.
I just saw it and I was like, how the hell did she get a croissant? It's ridiculous. All right, let's go ahead and get started then, shall we? Let's talk about what's going on with the Romeo and Juliet
I love that we're getting
stage
started
play.
at 4 o'clock.
I always get started about an hour in.
An hour in.
Guys, if you don't...
Can you imagine Brett is like a high school homeroom teacher who's like,
would be me,
you're like, if you were the running homeroom, it would be like, okay, guys, let's start, and the bell rings.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's an inside joke at this point, but yeah. Now that we are an hour in, guys, let's talk about what's going on with the Romeo and Juliet stage play starring Tom Holland, which is experiencing the Streisand effect right now because a whole lot of people had a whole lot to say about what was going on with this movie because of the casting, in which some people thought it was because of the race of the woman that was cast as Juliet. Other people thought it had more to do with her looks, but all in all, what happened was it blew up and became an even bigger deal than they thought it was, because now this movie is not just going to be done off Broadway, it is going straight to Broadway after it finishes its first run. And that is a perfect example how sometimes the first tweet I saw about this says, get woke, go broke crowd real quiet right now, which is kind of true.
And also, I mean, somebody's into it. Or was it like, again, I get so cynical. Like, was this always going to go on Broadway no matter how much bad press it got because they felt like it was worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, like how much of it is like people bought the tickets out of sheer curiosity, right? But they were like 200 euros. So that's not, like that's a lot of money to spend for sheer curiosity.
And that's, yeah, that's interesting.
So it says the Spider-Man stars return to London's West End stage where he starred as Billy Elliot the musical as a boy. I didn't know that about Tom Holland. Has seen tickets for the show at the Duke of York's Theatre all sell out in under 2 hours. Now the UK Mirror newspaper reports that the Jamie Lloyd Company production will be transferring to New York once it finishes its London run in August of this year. All because a bunch of people on the internet argued about whether this woman was attractive or not, and then it got repackaged by the media as a race thing.
It's the ultimate all bad press is good press thing.
No, that's a perfect example.
And interesting that the media was like, so you're saying it started with like, is she pretty? And the media was like, wow, racism abounds, which means that people might come out and be like, no, I really want to support this production with this brave, mistreated person.
This is what I think we talked about this before, but I'm going to let you know what the director of the play's statement was. He says, this must stop. We are working with a remarkable group of artists. We insist that they are free to create work without facing harassment online. We will continue to support and protect everyone in our company at all costs. Any abuse will not be tolerated and will be reported. Bullying and harassment have no place online. Oh boy.
But that's all online is.
That's literally what the
I don't
internet
think they
is.
understand the internet.
So the actress, her name's Francesca.
Not that you should bully people, obviously.
Francesca Umeda Umada Rivers. I always have a hard time with that name. I apologize. It's not trying to
I
be
don't think you
rude.
should apologize.
And I feel like they kind of served her up for this, and that this was always going to happen because the internet is this. It is a place where bullying happens all day, every day. What I find
And they
funny
benefited
about
from
is,
it, right? Like
yes.
this is where they took lemons, made lemonade. They're gonna get a run of their show on Broadway.
My hope is that she just doesn't go online and read any of this. A lot of people who have a problem with it. Look, race swapping and gender swapping are very common on stage. That has always been done, as we were talking about earlier, that you were talking about what Macbeth with Denzel Washington, and nobody cared because it was Denzel Washington whose reputation precedes himself, and he's not going to get that same type of backlash that somebody else is going to get. But when people see a relatively unknown actor who only had one television credit, but was a theater major and has a master's or whatever, as a very extensive training in theater, get a job like this, but nobody's ever heard of them, people immediately get on, edgy and start saying like, is this deliberately being done to destroy beauty standards in America? Which I always think, on one hand, I'm like, that's ridiculous and over the top.
The play that's being staged in the UK.
Exactly.
Hold on, team.
But most of the people, here's the thing, most of the people, when this was being talked about, they thought this was going to be a movie and not a television show. They thought this was going to be a movie and not a stage play.
Yeah.
So they were only interested in as much as they could post their outrage online.
So when people were mad, they thought it was because it was a movie. But if it's a stage play, they're like, we don't care about this anymore.
The thing is, the problem with outrage, it cycles so fast. People have moved on
And it
to
seemed
the
like
next thing.
this was like people got irritated before there was. I mean, the internet will have the hot or not debate no matter what. But irritation in. Okay, so the thing about Romeo and Juliet in particular is that, theoretically it's set in Italy and, there's a certain look to Italian people. But there are adaptations, what is it called? I'm trying to think of it right now. There is, maybe someone knows it. There's a movie that's, it should be Macbeth, and it's set in Pennsylvania. Okay. And at the center is a fast food restaurant. I'll Google it in a second. Yeah. But it's really funny. It's well done. And theoretically, it's in America. It's in a different place. You could cast anyone the way you want to in those kind of adaptations. So if you're doing a more classical production, as a movie, and you're setting it in Italy, maybe you would want to stick to not race swapping people. On the other hand, on stage, I don't know, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Here's the problem though, this was never about her race. It was almost exclusively saying that she's not attractive enough to play this character.
Well, maybe he just loves her for her personality in this movie.
But they talk about how her description in the play is that she's extremely beautiful, right?
To him, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
But it goes beyond this because there's other people who are speaking out now. So this is another thing that I read today. It says, y'all remember the actress that was playing the younger version of Lady Danbury? She's asking us now to put pressure on Tom Holland to speak up against the racist attacks being thrown at Francesca.
So is he supposed to come out and be like, hey, I have a mixed race girlfriend. I obviously think this person is attractive, but not as pretty as Zendaya.
Then he's got to worry about what Zendaya says too, because he's look, she's good looking.
Because it seems like it's not a race. If it really is about her physical attractiveness, are they just mad that he's starring opposite someone that isn't Zendaya? Because people get really obsessed with their relationship.
This is what this person says. This says, y'all.
I'm so lost on this story. I don't even know what to comment on.
You lot need to put a lot of pressure on Tom Holland's head top. I need my guys to say anything about the disgusting racial abuse being thrown at our angel Fran. Comment, tweet, share, pressure him. If you could, send the text to your sneaky link that you really shouldn't be talking to. You can do this. Our power as a people and a community should never be underestimated. Avengers Assemble. They're literally saying Avengers Assemble to go bully someone into saying something.
Yeah, well, being cute up, being oh, we know you're not supposed to be talking to that guy, but you're doing it anyway, so might as well you do something good with it. So how serious is this cause if we're throwing in our little cutesy comments?
And this is what it always comes back to me on both sides, is that it really just, for something like this, it just comes about social pressure and getting someone to bow to your will.
Yeah. I am sort of lost on what the internet's mad. What are we mad about?
They were mad because they don't think that she's very attractive. And
is that because she's not white, or is that because
they just think that she
would
looks
be
like a guy?
They have produced another list of other women that they're here's a whole group of other people we think would be better fit.
I gave the example of the movie Romeo Must Die, starring Jet Li and Aaliyah. Aaliyah was gorgeous, and that was a take on Romeo and Juliet, albeit a movie and set in the year 2000, about crime families.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they're just so used to seeing this now. There's a lot of discussion about the destruction and the removal of beauty from Hollywood. And the thing is, the outrage is over. Everyone's moved on to Rapunzel now, and we're probably going to be talking about that tomorrow. Now they're arguing about the race swapping, the race swapping of a movie that's not even being made yet, where they're just theoretically casting someone as Rapunzel, the girl from the new Mean Girls musical, which nobody should go watch, by the way.
Yeah.
And the outrage is cyclical, and they're off to it by the next day, and it's just like nothing changes. And who wins in the end of this one? The stage play won. Because they made the money. They get to now take this production elsewhere. And somebody in the chat earlier said, like, it's pity money. Well, yes, Hollywood is full of people who will do that. And to be honest, a lot of people in New York will go see this play just to virtue signal.
Also, you know, if pity money cashes, then it's still money, you know, like to a certain extent. It's like if people are like buying something out of outrage, right? Like the person who's profiting maybe doesn't actually care that much what your motivation is. Like if you're buying tickets to this play because you're like, hey, this woman was mistreated, like good. You know, they're still profiting off of it. It doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, I see these things and I just wonder, like, when is the day that everyone gets sick of the outrage? But I understand that that's not the way the internet works, and that's just how things are. I struggle with that because with these things,
and don't go into hysterics over like what you're talking about this Rapunzel thing. Like, let's not go into hysterics over things before they happen, right? Well, this is something that I feel like it's easy to be critical of mainstream media about because they're like they're turning this thing into something it's not, and this that, and the other. But like, if you are also doing that because you think hypothetically someone shouldn't be cast, like, you're also part of this echo chamber problem.
And I just say it's like time management. Like it's a stage play. Like if it's a movie and you feel really strongly about movies, maybe you focus more on it if it really means a lot to you. I get a lot of crap sometimes because race swaps don't bother me as much as they bother other people when they use really good actors to do it. I understand the issue is like a lot of times they cast some nobody who nobody's ever heard of, and it delivers a subpar performance, and then everybody's left angry at the end. I still challenge anyone to find a person who's mad about an actor of another race when it's just a new character, which they never are.
No, they're never mad. Like the only one that of late that I have really been like, yeah, that's too bad is The Little Mermaid, which I should go back and check the original text. I'm pretty sure they mentioned the fact that her hair is red in that too, which means that you're just like erasing gingers who are like redheaded people are a global and genetic minority. So that one does seem bad to me. Yeah. But if you're just like especially with Shakespeare stuff,
they don't take that though. They like there is a ginger side going on in Hollywood.
Yeah, which is like crazy that's okay, right? But the with this in particular staging, you know, I was really interested in Shakespeare. I was interested in theater, and there are like classically trained Shakespearean actors, right? Like there are people who study this specifically and maybe would be better in a stage production for that reason. Yeah. And I think a movie casting for movies feels different than it does for
a lot of
the stage
agree.
anyways.
Yeah.
Like you can always tell when an actor has stage experience, right? Like an actor who has performed on Broadway or in the West End or wherever, they perform differently, and it can often be to their benefit.
I've seen a lot. I like to watch the interviews where stage actors talk about going back to working in movies and television, and how different it is to get back to doing takes, how they have to enunciate different, you know, the speaking is different and all those things. Somebody mentioned earlier, they said Denzel is known for playing race swap characters. That is actually true. The Equalizer, Man on Fire, and more are all characters that he took over after they were portrayed by white actors before. But he said, and whoever said it before said Denzel doesn't get a pass. I give him a pass. I do. It doesn't, like, if Denzel's in the movie, I'm more likely to enjoy it anyway. He's my favorite actor of all time. But that's the thing. He's one of the best actors working, and you're still only going to get that pass from some people. A lot of other people who are more rigid in their beliefs on these things have a right to say, I don't agree. I don't want this to happen. I don't care how good the actor is. And they're not wrong.
Yeah, it's hard to say because it depends so much on how the production is staged, any like interpretations or, you know, anything else. But generally I'm against like just randomly dropping in people of a race into, you know, a period drama just to prove a point by modern standards. I don't think that's good.
Yeah. So you did see the Denzel in Macbeth? Was it
I
good?
did see that one. I thought it was good. Yep. The other thing is, like, especially with Shakespearean plays or any kind of classical plays, there'll be another one. Like, if you don't like how this one's cast, they're gonna do it again.
All right. Let's go to Super Chats then, shall we, guys? We got to start at the top here. I had to re-log in to YouTube in the middle of the show, so now I have to start from the top here. First things first, that was me. I said, what if I Super Chat my own show? I did that to test the crisis meter.
No, Brett's obsessed with himself.
That's exactly it. I wanted to test the crisis meter, which, by the way, guys, we are very close to a second crisis party, so you should go ahead and...
And you can actually verify Brett on this today. Yesterday, you were like, we're so close,
yes,
but how could any of us know?
We are close. Shane H. Wilder says, Happy Taco Tuesday, Brett and Hannah Claire. I have not been swept up by a twister yet, but still want to watch till 5. Live Moss, everyone. Do it for Mary. Go to Taco Bell.
Are you gonna go to Taco Bell?
I'm working to not spend money on fast food right now.
Oh, interesting.
As much as possible.
Yeah.
Staying away from it. I did see posted the scene from the...
A budgeting girly. Look at you go.
Could you at least say guy? Budgeting guy. He did post the scene from Twister where the cow goes by and the cow goes by again. They're like, I think it's funny. The same cow. And I said, I think I'm going to watch Twister tonight. But I don't have my DVDs or my Blu-rays here, and it's not on any streaming service that I have, so I'm gonna have to wait. Charles II of Spain says, does Hannah Claire have a favorite 17th century monarch? Also, is it the bride's family that traditionally pays the dowry?
This is the second part of the question.
I thought the groom paid the dowry.
I think it depends on the culture, right? I think some cultures, the dad pays you to take the girl, and in other cultures, you trade livestock for the girl so that you can have a bride. And
how many cows are you
something.
worth?
Look, I don't know. You'd have to talk to my dad about that. I'm a nice girl, but I don't know that I have a favorite 17th century monarch. Now I feel like I'm gonna do some reading and figure out if I have one.
You'll have to do that. All right, Shane H. Wilder says, Dane should be in tomorrow for Women Wednesday. Yes, Dane will be on the show tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be fantastic.
Wow, so he's coming on a day that I'm not here, and I'm not supposed to take this personally?
You can be on the show tomorrow if you want.
Look, I don't know. If Dane's trying to avoid me.
Not that.
When Dane's here, everyone tell him that he's fired from our friendship.
Not that John Stewart says, but Brett, I have no friends. He sent that when I said, share this video with your friends. You should share it anyway. Share it with your acquaintances.
Or your relatives, you know?
Exactly. All right. We'll hold off on the rest and we'll come back after the fact, guys. Let's move on. I want to talk about this story because I did a fact check on this. So there was this picture going around on the internet over the weekend. It was going around on Twitter advertising something called Skip the Foreplay on Netflix, which supposedly would allow you to skip the spicy scenes in Bridgerton. And I went to inspect because I think that
real?
It's not real.
Oh my God.
It is not real, ladies and gentlemen. But I thought it was an interesting concept because I think something like this would be a really, really good idea. If you're actually trying to encourage people to watch their movies with family and friends, the last thing you want is to have to sit in a room. Well, and then I just Googled. I was like Googling application to remove sex scenes from movies, and that does
There
exist.
was one.
Yes.
I don't know if it still exists, but AngelVid, I think, was what it was called for a while.
Yes.
And I know this because
Angel, is that what it was?
I thought there was one called AngelVid.
Oh, Angel Fire was like a hosting service back in the day.
Oh.
But
look at you in the internet. But it would I've heard someone talking about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's great because you can use it whenever." My wife and I used it for Game of Thrones, and so we watched 30 seconds.
So yeah, and you'd miss pretty much everything, right? Like somebody else said, like they should make they said technically a skip the foreplay button would just bring you right to the sex, not the.
That's true.
So
interesting.
I'm going to show you guys what the mock-up looked like. It was funny because it was actually like pretty well done, and the guy's like he made the whole thing for it. So it's like a picture there. Skip the foreplay, literally. Make family movie night less awkward by deleting naughty scenes from this show. No, it's fine. Please do. I found it funny because when I went and looked into the button, what I found was a bunch of like Quora posts that were all like, why do I feel uncomfortable watching sex scenes when my family's around? I'm like, you have to ask that?
What?
People were asking that question on the internet, and it begs the question, like,
did you read them? What's the context here?
A lot of them were just like, these things are so common. Why should I feel weird if they're putting it in this stuff? Maybe other people are doing it, right? And people are like, no, it's awkward.
It's just weird, yeah.
And it's uncomfortable, right? Is this something that you would employ? Would you use this button if it existed?
I don't know, probably. Like, it depends on the context here. Because I've only ever heard about it in the context of, like, you're trying to, like, protect children from things or, like, be able to show them some stuff while skipping others. But I do know some people who are very, like, with the Angel Vet or whatever it was called, I knew people who are like, oh, no, as a couple, we use these things because we don't want to, like, you know, accidentally stumble across anything that could be even remotely pornographic or anything like that, which is interesting. I don't know.
Why do you think that the culture, like,
I don't watch enough streaming stuff to be able to have to worry about this.
There was stuff where a lot of Gen Z was saying, oh, we got a $20 super chat there from Darth Doza. Says, I am rage sending this, so take this money and put it towards your crisis party, but do not enjoy it.
Oh.
Kidding. Hannah Claire is a cool duck,
wow.
but not cool enough to be a cool cat.
Oh, wow.
That's just rude.
No, I mean, he's got high standards. We can only aspire to be a cool cat. A cool duck is an unusual one, but I guess I'll keep working on my coolness.
It just feels like there was multiple things that said like Gen Z wasn't fans of sex scenes in movies and television. So who is this for? Like, I don't know who this is actually for.
Like,
I don't know who actually likes this stuff.
Who wants the skip button, or who wants them to keep putting it in?
Who wants to keep putting it in?
I think it's interesting that Gen Z is starting to be like, no, we don't want this, because I think the oversaturated market, I mean, we see this in a lot of angles, really damages people's, especially young people's development, but the development of healthy relationships and things like that. So maybe it would be almost more interesting to have a show come out and not have it, because there's more artistry in the implications as opposed to the graphic depiction.
Yeah, I always say that the best shows don't need to show it. They adequately build it up properly and then are able to move through it, and you get a satisfying experience of the whole story without actually showing it. Yeah. I tend to just be blah when I see them. I'll watch old episodes of like True Detective and stuff like that, and you see the stuff and I'm just like, like most of the time what it is it feels tacked on, and that in these studios like Showtime and Cinemax used to mandate these things be in their shows because that was the reason to have Showtime and Cinemax.
But now it's everywhere.
Now, because all of these are pay-to-play streaming services, they all seem to mandate it, and it feels like you had your market back in the day of the people who were willing to pay for Showtime and Cinemax just to get content like that.
Yeah.
But that market isn't the same number as it is for just general people who will just pay for a streaming service but don't want that.
Right. I mean, just my personal preference is not to have that unless it were really, really, really like crucial to the storyline. And I can't think of a movie off the top of my head where like you needed a sex scene to be able to tell the story. Yeah. For the most part, it's just there for sensationalization or to seem hip and current or to seem risque, and like that's not interesting to me.
Yeah. I look at things like this, and this guy could make all sorts of viral content around this, because I really do think that more people would be interested in something like this. Because you don't, like, especially if you watch stuff with family these days. Like, I watch all my stuff alone, and I don't have any interest in watching things like this.
I'm alone all the time, like, says Brett.
But like, if you're watching this stuff with your family, you're just like, you're constantly playing Russian roulette as to whether you're going to be in the middle of some really, really awkward scene that nobody wants to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I just, I can't see it. So it says, this would be such a dope feature. Hey, I think a lot of people would appreciate it. What I wouldn't be surprised they're doing is you have to pay more for it.
I know a site that you do that. Yeah. I think that's similar, you know? Like, that's my thing. It's all the integration of pornography and the normalization of exposure to sex at an early age, and I think that you should resist that. Somebody says instead of black bars to censor, it'd be a bunch of little ads. Yeah, what if they just like you can't actually skip the scene? They just like, oh, do you want to skip it? We're gonna put like a Snickers ad on screen during the duration of this scene. Look, maybe that's better, you know? And if it costs you less, like if you could save money by not watching stuff that has sex scenes in it, maybe that's good. And I don't know why why Hollywood want to continue to push it other than degeneracy, when there seems to be the pushback that people aren't as interested in as they seem to. So Sam Levinson shows Euphoria doesn't look like it's going to get a season 3, or if it does, it's being rewritten. His last show, The Idol, got canceled, which was all of these shows were known for degenerate behavior. And it's like, if the audience isn't there, if the writing is really, really bad and the nudity and the sex scenes aren't enough to keep people, what's the point of continuing
continuing to do it. A lot of people see a more nefarious motive in that, and they think that it's Hollywood trying to change the world into a culture of degeneracy. I think that's harder to prove.
I think that could be part of it. The other thing is, I think it's easier to pretend like something is powerful if you have something that's kind of shocking, right? So like if you have really graphic sex scenes, then you don't really need to try that hard to write a script that accurately conveys like the struggle of the emotions, right? Because you're getting drama in a different way. It seems almost like Hollywood should abandon it because it's a crutch.
Also, I think for the most part, when I see these types of things, I miss the days when the wholesome storytelling was the norm and not the exception. Like there's a reason why I love certain eras of television that were just thank you.
Oh hey. I just think you have to work harder when you're not being as graphic. And I think there's artistry in that. So I'd like to see it again.
All right. So he says Brett's VHS tapes worn at certain scenes, but just from fast forwarding. No idea, bro. You'd have to. I still have a VHS collection too. I absolutely do.
Do you have a VHS player?
I do. I have 2 in storage.
I know people who go out of their way to like find them at thrift stores or flea markets because they're like, well, I believe this too. Like you can cut things from streaming, or they can take it off and it's gone forever. Whereas you have VHS tape, like you're holding steady.
Well, same with DVD. Like the whole point of owning the DVD player is that like you can still
they can never take it away
watch the
from
things
you.
that they can't take away from you, which I appreciate because they've done that. Like a lot of things have been. That's also what's funny is like so there was the scene in was like the Blue Lagoon where they edited her hair to cover her butt. But like they put all of these sex scenes in movies now, and it's like, why are some things being censored, but other things are maybe her character's supposed to be underage in that, and that's like why they ended up doing that. But it's like they'll edit certain things, but then they're making the new content more graphic, which makes no sense whatsoever. So. All right, let's go to Super Chats and let's pick up where we left off. I want to make sure that I get through everything today. All right. Corey Anderson says, Hannah Claire, you look lovely today. Brett,
thanks.
Brett, sup.
Sup.
There you go. Shane H. Wilder says, crisis meter is back. Crisis averted. But
it is nice to have it. I feel like the world has healed, you know. Nature's healing.
I love that one.
Yeah,
it's a good one. DCNC says, HCB had to take a call from your obstetrician.
Oh my gosh. You guys are giving me more credit than I deserve. Also, you know, it was definitely not. I wish I guys could tell you a story because it's just Brett knows why I had to take a call, and it's just this stupid series of events that I now have to deal with. Does that ever happen to anyone else?
Probably.
You know what I mean? Like
somebody says Brooke Shields was underage in that scene, and that's why they did it. And plus, it was for Disney Plus. Okay, well that makes sense.
How reputable of them.
Yep. How nice of them to do that all those years later. Corey Anderson says, I forgot the H. My apologies, HCB.
That's okay. It's a lot of letters.
Does Scanner have an email address for tips or leads?
I don't know. You can typically contact any of the writers, but their first name at Scanner. I don't know how much everyone checks their emails. Reaching out to Chris Carr is always a good way to get tips and leads through. He's our editor, and he does a good job of like filtering and figuring out which writers would be best for which stories.
All right, the Manic Mustache says, now that they have pulled the Society of Magical Ninjas, does that mean there's no hope for my screenplay, Foundation of Foxy Frostbacks? It's a rom-com. Frostback is a slur we've created for Canadians.
That's rude.
Which I get called an honorary Frostback as a
well, because the Tim Hortons is in your state,
yes.
So.
Yep. All right, is Tim Hortons in Minnesota? I have no idea.
I think it's in Ohio.
It's in Detroit. It's in Michigan. I've never been to a Tim Hortons.
If you're in Minnesota, let me know if you've ever seen a Tim Hortons in the state.
All right, let's do one more, and then we will move on. So Brewmaster Monk says, I work with a magical janitor. I'm going to skip that word there. But instead of life advice, he talks about trading the Thanksgiving turkey. Our job gave us the holidays plus $40 for the I don't know what that means. Oh, the sex worker that he cheats on his wife with. I don't know if I believe that story.
Well, it's a doozy, I will tell you.
He could be lying.
I wonder how we would prove this. How do we fact check this comment?
That's a good question. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Gen Z and dating. I had a feeling you would be interested in something like this because you like the stories.
What are you saying about me, Brett?
Well, there was a meme.
I'm nosy. I want to know what's going on.
There was a meme at one point that said that you showed me where it's like, what do you want to talk about on Pop Culture Crisis?
Wait, hold on. Somebody is saying yes, Tim Hortons is in certain parts of Minnesota.
Well, I have never been there. But
are you even from Minnesota?
There was the meme where it's like, what are you going to talk about Pop Culture Crisis? And you're like, marriage, kids, family.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's true. Because there are times when you host and like Brett will ask me beforehand, like he'll be like, "Yeah, send me some stories if you're interested," and I'm like, "Okay, here we go." I will tell everyone that I flagged 2 Taylor Swift stories for Brett yesterday because people were like, "Hey, Claire's on. It must be Taylor Swift news."
What were they? I don't even remember what they were.
I won't tell you now because you politely skipped over them.
It was the
I don't even want to talk about. I don't want to talk about
it.
them.
Was the Calvin Harris one? Don't be rude.
There's a couple. But
Okay.
whatever. Yeah, that is one. Calvin Harris's wife being like, "Oh yeah, I listen to Taylor Swift, but not when my husband is home."
When I saw that, I just thought, and I said, why is this news?
It's just funny. Also that he's married. Oh my god.
Somebody else pointed out, they said, I thought it was weird when I found out that Calvin Harris's stage name is just a stage name for an even more normal sounding person's name.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right. So it says Gen Z prefers first dates are digital instead of meeting people in the real world. They claim it's just more efficient. Thoughts?
I would like to see the parameters of when this study, so it was done by a dating app called Wingman, occurred, because the thing is, if you were, let's say, 18 when the pandemic hit, there was a time when they were big on like Hinge and all these dating apps were like, you can do FaceTime first dates, and you can social distance and walk in a park or sit 100 miles apart and text or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't believe that there was a time when young people's first exposure to dating was it must be virtual first. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't seem like this headline is weirding me out. Prefers first dates are digital instead of meeting people IRL. Like, for how long? Because
they say just the first date. So they're saying basically you can break the ice that way and figure out.
But don't you kind of already do that on dating apps when it's like you just message back and forth for a while and they're like, okay, so now, because like the same thing, like you meet digitally and then eventually have to be like, so we're gonna meet in person?
Yeah.
You see the distinction I'm making? Like,
so it says a survey of 500 people aged 18 to 27 on their dating preferences. They found that a staggering 65% preferred to meet digitally, the most significant change since the height of the coronavirus pandemic. Users in the younger age group just absolutely don't bat an eye at it and think it's efficient. It's great. The dating app boss said that it was describing these so-called virtues of dating virtually. Also, though, one of the things they talk about is it's cheaper and life is expensive and going on a date costs a lot of money.
I believe that one.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part of for young people right now. It's just like you have to invest a lot of money, especially for men, right? The expectation that being that men pay for things, like you have to invest a lot of money up front and then we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like, well, I thought about that and I was like, isn't part of it like one of the most rewarding aspects of a date going well and things coming together and building a bond is like you do take that risk, you do make that investment, and then it does come together. And when it doesn't work out, that sucks, but that makes the times when it does work out more better.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's nice. I think part of it too is like you don't have to spend a ton of money on a first date. You could meet, for coffee. You could go for a walk. You could do whatever. Like this is an expectation that maybe either the culture that you're living in or the community around you might put on you, but it's not necessarily the case.
Well, doesn't the actual act of being in the same physical space also matter?
I think it really does, because I think so much of attraction is actually like pheromone based. Mm-hmm. I think people know on.
Are we going to get into the to the birth control discussion?
Dare we bring it up?
Oh,
I mean, I'm happy to talk about it if you want to. I've talked about it, I think, a fair amount, but separate from whether birth control changes the way women smell, which is, or they perceive smell, which yes, it does. I think you can be in someone's company and know how you feel about them even before you know exactly how they feel about all the things that are important to you, right? If someone makes you feel uncomfortable in person, but they're easy to talk to online, like that would be a red flag for me. I think you kind of have to know early on.
There's a huge difference between the two, and I think that that's going to get harder to figure out as we get as the next generation comes in, because so many kids are growing up exclusively online and they don't have that firsthand experience. That other study that I was looking at was saying that Gen Z is going back to dating at work because dating apps are because dating apps are such a mess right now that they say, you don't know.
Spend a lot of time at work. So I don't want to like jump the gun. If you want to pull the article,
go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, Brett sent me this article, and it's talking about how Gen Z is starting to date from work, which people have always proportionally, it's always been a solid place that people meet people. From the 90s, they've found this, right? That, you know, a certain percentage of every population, and I think it's always around 30%, report that they met their significant other, their wife, their spouse, whatever, at work. And again, how many hours a day do you spend at work? Yeah. Even more so in post-pandemic era, when that was the first place you were obligated to go socially. You know how people talked about, like, after the pandemic, I stopped wanting to go out and socialize? Well, your office could still require you to go in. So if that's where you're getting your most social interactions, that seems super normal to me that you would meet someone at work.
And then when you meet somebody online, they in the article, they liken it to like you kiss a bunch of toads, having them not turn into princes, trying to find a prince. Whereas at work, there's shared social setting.
Yeah.
You have things in common. Even if all you have in common is work, you build from there. And there's a level of cohesion there that's very hard to fake when you're meeting
Right.
digitally.
I saw this study, and I wish I could cite it more properly, but there was a study that found the most common way that people meet people is online, or is through friends, and then the next one is at work. And, you know, I think people can meet online and have successful relationships and can be totally fine. Obviously, I have expressed my personal sense that it can be dangerous because you don't actually know anything about this person, and on a dating app you can present yourself however you want to, and that means you can show up at the date and say anything, versus like if I were like to meet a guy, and so if Brett and I in our group of friends, he brought someone around and I was like, hey, I like your friend, like, can I have his number, whatever else, can he have my number? Brett obviously then knows this guy, and I have, you know, for Brett,
then I'm on the hook if something bad happens.
Brett and I have known each other for 3 years. Like, he's not going to be like, oh yeah, you can. By the way, he's an axe murderer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is a way to vet things.
Things
or
go
like
wrong, and she's like, why didn't you let me know? He was such a piece of crap.
Or like if I like was like, hey Brett, I have a friend who's newly single. I actually think you guys would hit it off. You know, she loved Minnesota and you're from there, like whatever it is, it's better screening than just like with any of the dating apps where it's like we are physically near each other and I have maybe listed hiking as my hobby. Like that seems worse to me. I think
how many men are just pretending to like hiking because women say they like hiking on their dating app?
The data that I'd really like to see, whether like in person, online, whatever else, what I'd like to see is if group dates start becoming an like on the rise thing for young people, right? Because if you were like, if you were interested in someone.
Wait, how like is a group date different than like a double date?
I think a double date is being two people versus being like,
so it's
some of my friends' parents had rules that were like, when you were at a certain age in dating, you weren't allowed to go out one-on-one. You could go out in like a group, right? Theoretically, you get into less trouble that way. So like, if you were like, it's Saturday night and you could spend, let's say $50 on a date, or you could spend, you know, $20 going out with a bunch of people who are also single, you know, what do young people do? I don't know.
What do the young kids
bowling,
do?
Let's say that. Maybe you would rather go there because you're potentially meeting a bunch of people who are also, you know, single, looking for other people to meet, or your friend brought a friend that they want you to hang out with, but you're also getting to hang out with your friend. Like, I would want to know how our social culture changes to accommodate maybe the move away from just one-on-one talking. Like if that's what the Gen Zers are saying with this, we don't want to meet in person, maybe being in a group would take some of the pressure off, the same way that talking over FaceTime seems to take some of the pressure off.
So in this study, it says 33% of younger millennials and Gen Z workers said that they would be open to a workplace romance, comparing to older millennials, 15%, and Gen X, 27%. That's interesting that there's a gap between young and old of these generations, and Gen X being on the other end of the spectrum. Yeah. That millennials dropped and then Gen X went back up. U.S. workers, they're currently in a relationship with 17% of U.S. workers are currently in a relationship with a coworker, and 49% have a crush on a coworker. We got to learn.
Which makes sense because that's where people spend most of their time and like see people most
often.
It's
you know, what it is. It's the guy who's walking by a girl's cubicle and he makes up the fantasy in his mind that she's like the greatest thing ever, but he doesn't actually take the time to talk to her or ask her a question or anything like that.
I don't know. You know? I feel like dating is really hard in our current culture because it's supposed to be a gray area for everyone. Like the term situationship, when people talk about, I saw this video of this girl being like, God, girls, don't worry. After 10 months, I bagged my situationship. And be like, dang, that seems very unintentional and flattering. Like you had to hang around and be like, what are we doing? And then after 10 months, almost a year, this person was like, yeah, I guess I'll commit to you.
Well, in this story,
seems rough, seems inefficient.
In this story, there's an example that someone gives where it's like, she was dating a coworker, They weren't dating. They weren't, but he was doing all the things but saying they were in a relationship. And when she pressured him to actually put a label on it, he said no. And now she sees the guy at work and it's really, really uncomfortable. I've always kind of been one of those people I dated a coworker back in the day. I just never wanted to do it again because like I'm already distracted easily enough as it is, and it's just not good for me.
And that's the thing with all of it. Like, you have to be able to set your boundaries in whatever situation you're in, right? So like, if you were dating, I don't understand how Gen Z could, in the culture of situationships, could have coworker relationships, because I feel like if you're working with someone, you have to be more clear about what's going on. Whereas like, if you were like dating someone out in the wild that wasn't affecting your life, then like, yeah, you could be messy and do whatever you wanted to. That, to me, that's how it seems.
And the story in here is like, now they see each other at work and she like actively goes to floors she's not working on to avoid him. And I'm like, that was a completely fixable situation by just not getting a relationship with somebody you spend the most time with,
But then you can understand why people would be like, of course I'm going to end up having feelings for a coworker if you spend 40 hours a week with them consistently. Like, it's almost an exposure thing. And that's where, like, again, I'm not against dating apps all the time. I just think more people should be out in the wild meeting people, right? Because then maybe if you are like if you work 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, and then you come home and you're just like on the internet all the time on the dating apps, you have no other social outlet. Whereas if you're involved in your church, if you're involved in whatever, you go to book club, like, you're more likely to just meet people.
Yeah, I just don't know how much that happens to you. Like, maybe I'm just pessimistic, but
I think it's some people, they pursue it and they want it, so it happens, and some people are kind of waiting for social interactions to happen to them while they're at home isolated.
Yeah. And then it doesn't happen.
They're like, well, I have to use the apps. I don't meet anyone. It's like, but you're not putting yourself in. What are you expecting them to come out of your closet, like burst through your front door, being like, "I'm ready to date now"? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And it is a vastly different thing, right? Like, there's a gap there between meeting someone digitally and then how you're able to actually portray yourself and handle yourself in person. And even that's like, how many hurdles do you have to get over before you get there? And then you take into account that Gen Z and increasingly Gen Alpha are the most online generation there is, and you wonder how anyone meets anyone anywhere.
Well, that's life's great mystery, right? How does anyone find anyone these days? At any of the days, really.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the benefits to online dating, or just generally our more like mobile culture, is that you're not just like in a remote farming village waiting for maybe one fellow to stumble by. Like,
well, that's what they talk about, right? It completely changed the dating game when people who lived in a remote area were now suddenly had access to people that were 20 miles away, 30 miles away. That you back in the day, you were not just separated by, your town. It was, you went to this school, you went to this church. You didn't really leave that area or associate with people a whole lot outside of that area until you went off to college.
There was this novel that I was reading, and they were talking, an old maid of some sort, maybe she's in her 40s or 50s, and she's like, yeah, this guy asked me to marry him once, but I turned him down because he was poor at the time, but I wish I had accepted because I didn't realize men were so scarce. Like, I didn't know that I was only gonna only have this one shot, which is kind of interesting. I definitely think the internet encourages people to be like, well, maybe there's something better, which is sort of negative for society.
Yes. No, that's a big thing that I taught.
Okay, let me propose a dating app for you right now. What if, instead of people being in charge of individually finding their matches, what if your parents and your siblings were the ones having to take applications, right? What if you were just, because they talk about, this is making me think of something else. I don't remember where in China, but there is a park in China where parents will go and set up poster boards with their kid's picture and their information, and just talk to each other and be like, oh, well, I have a daughter, do you have a son? What's going on there? This is something that they're doing because they're, number one, they want their kids to get married, they want their family legacy to continue, but also they want their children to pursue relationships even if their children are maybe not willing. What if dating apps were just people sort of it was like a LinkedIn, but instead of referring people to jobs, you're like, hey, I have a sister who's not married, maybe your cousin should meet her.
Yeah,
I think that would be useful.
A lot of and then I think about the parents but how many of these kids actually want what their parents want, in the what their parents want for you is going to be very different a lot of times depending on your age.
And I think when you know what you're looking for, dating becomes much easier because you can make decisions more quickly, and it's easier to say up front, well, this is the thing I want and I want to get there promptly, or I know I don't want this, And so you're able to just sort of screen faster. I think the problem with dating apps is that, you know, I don't know, maybe they were created with genuine intent to get people to a certain point, but so many people aren't dating apps are willing to be like, well, I maybe want a serious relationship, but also maybe I don't want that at all. And that's actually the thing. You know, it allows you to be sort of dishonest in a way that like in-person confrontation or referral through friends doesn't allow.
As competition, as companies go, I don't know, I can't imagine that they were actually designed to find permanent love, because you're literally taking people off your app if you're helping them find love and get married.
Yeah, it is interesting. It does feel like it's mostly for casual dating. On the other hand, I do know people who have met very serious, you know, have gotten into really serious relationship with people they've met on apps. Because again, it's similar numbers game. If you were to be like, I know exactly what I'm looking for, I'm going to swipe through 50 profiles, I'm going to go out with, you know, 5 people, I'm going to go on second dates with 3 people, and then I know by the end of that, this is the person. Like, that's effectively your own dating TV show. Like, that's what like those franchises like The Bachelor and stuff are kind of creating, just in a compact scale.
I love this comment. It says, love by spreadsheet in girly chat mags. I mean, it does feel like that sometimes, right? Like, I remember watching this episode of a show where this woman, she had a spreadsheet. I have to be married by this year, and I have to be this. Like, she had this whole life plan that included finding a husband that was like, by this date, I need to find this person. Yeah. And that's crazy.
Look, I feel like it's hard. And I think it is hard when you know you want something, but I mean, it's I get a nice Christian cop out here, which I get to say, you know, everything in God's timing, you know, when you are supposed to be married or when you're supposed to be the person you will be. But that doesn't make the waiting or like the having to search easier, right? You can't just be like, well, in God's timing, and then sit at home and meet no one. Like, well, I think you are setting yourself up for failure if you think that's something you're called for.
A lot of people might think that too. It's like, well, if it happens, you know, when it's meant to be, it'll be. It's like, no, it still takes work.
Or like Spreadsheet Girl, you know, if you are like, I really, really, really want to be married before I do X thing, or like when all my friends are getting married, or else like if you're not with that person when the year arrives, that creates a sense of pressure that is very difficult because you actually have very little control over that. All you can do is like work on yourself and put yourself into positions where you're living a fulfilling life and potentially meeting someone who is interested and has similar values to you, but you can't make it happen. Or I mean, I guess you could just marry whoever is like right there when you hit that year. And if that's what she did, that's even more fascinating.
The problem is like if people haven't thought it through and they just marry the persons that right there, I think that a lot of times later what happens is they start, society tells you to always imagine that there's more and that it could be better. And that's poisonous.
Well, and it makes me think about arranged marriages where like you'll hear people say like, well, we knew we were going to get married, so we developed our friendship and our romance after. But like, we are married and we don't believe in divorce, so we're staying married. Versus if you were like, well, I just want to get married, so I'll marry you, but I do believe in divorce, so potentially this could fall apart. Like, you have to think about the mentality that you're going into with it. If you're like, well, I just want to be married and I don't know if I'll stick with it forever, probably just don't get married then, because you shouldn't be entering into something permanently thinking like, bah, I don't know, I just want to move forward with this stage of life, even though that's tempting.
There was a show called Royal Pains.
I loved Royal Pains. Brett and I should start a USA Today network.
We should start
USA Network.
USA Network. In Royal Pains, there was a character named Divya who was...
She was supposed to be arranged marriage.
So she doesn't call it... She goes, it's a strategic marriage.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how they portrayed this on the show, because what they did is they don't frame it with a whole ton of judgment. They show it as this is a contract that these two have been part of their whole lives. They were essentially arranged to be married from the time they were children. And the gentleman, he's a perfectly he's
a good catch, right?
He's a good guy. He's got a good job. He's not a bad person, but they don't have a whole lot of romantic inclination to one another because it's been some type of business arrangement the whole time. And she eventually backs out of this arranged marriage. Then they fall in love later. Which is the most American spin you can put on this story, right? Which is that they don't judge the arranged marriage. They say, you know, that's your culture, that's fine. But she's an Americanized woman who then backs out. And then he's bitter for a while. She has to like pay his family back for the wedding and all the stuff that she can't afford. And her dad disowns her for a period of time.
But then she ends up with him anyway.
And then she ends up with him anyways. And it kind of is the perfect story that maybe the problem is like that we've got 20 years of 30 years, 40 years of television and movies that have kind of poisoned us to just how complicated these things actually are. And that the fairy tale ending is going to look very different than what you see in movies and television.
Right. And I think, of course, everyone wants to be with like the best, perfect partner of all time, like a spouse in like whichever way. But also they want to fall in love and have all the romance. And I think, you know, I have relatives who have talked about stuff like this where there are basically like all kinds of marriages in the world, if marriage is the thing you're aspiring to. And like you can know someone is right for you for a number of reasons. But some relationships are more about your compatibility as opposed to like, oh my gosh, we're so deeply in love that we just can't see straight. And either one of those could work, just like either one of those could fail.
All right, let's go to
Anyways.
Super Chats and let's finish this up. If we get done early, we'll just hang out. It's the best thing about this show. All right, where did we leave off? We did the Brewmaster Monk one. That one was a glorious bit of creative writing. John Durham says, "What does Hannah?" I don't know, Hannah.
Well,
What does Hannah? I'm gonna assume that he means Hannah Claire. What does Hannah Claire think of Mel Gibson's Hamlet?
I don't know if I've seen it, to be honest. There was a phase where this was like all I was watching all the time, if I was watching anything.
What do you think of
There's a
Mel
lot of-
Gibson's masterpiece Ransom? That's the real
I've never
question.
seen it.
Okay.
Brett knows this is a bad game because if you're like, what do you think of this movie? The chances are I have never seen it.
Shane H. Wilder says, "Is there a video game?" "Is there a video game? Sonic 1 through 3 and Knuckles Sonic Adventures? No, it is not in Mario Kart. He is in Smash Bros. He's in Super Smash Brothers."
But I swear he's an option on some. Why would I know who Sonic the Hedgehog is?
Maybe your family had Sega Genesis growing up.
I really don't think so, but I should call my brother live on air. I'm like, what
Did
video game?
Did we have a Sega Genesis growing
Here,
up?
I'll text him. Hey, dude.
Steve Bordelmay says, "You should get Clownfish TV on the show. Top-notch dismal Disney Channel." I love all the Clownfish videos that clown on Disney. They are fantastic. As a channel, they are really, really great. One of the few channels. So I used to watch a lot of YouTube. I don't watch as much YouTube anymore. I just don't necessarily have the time that I used to. But one of the channels that I still make good time for, I make time for Comics Matter with your boy Zach, and I make time for Clownfish TV. Both have video formats that I really, really appreciate. Sonic. Tacty Platy says, "Hello, HC. Wife and I met on a dating app in 2016.
See, they totally can work,
you
right?
go.
It's just, you have to be, for me, it was never worth it because you have to be so careful about who's on the other side. Like, you guys found each other because you wanted the same thing and it was good, but so often, I guess I'm just not very trusting. Like, you can go on and be
Yeah.
like, well, I want this thing, but actually I don't want it. Or I want it as a concept, but I am not actually in a position in life to concretely work toward it. And that's the reality of dating all the time, though.
Shane H. Wilder says, "How do you lie about being British? Did he just have bad oral hygiene and blame it on the UK when the truth was he just didn't brush?"
That's a hate crime. You know, it was one of those things when I was listening to it, I was like, how could you possibly believe it? And she said that they don't have any audio recording from him, but they said his British accent was legitimate. But also maybe she was just like, good enough. I'm ready to be with someone long term and you're the one, and you can like shut your eyes to all of the warning signs and red flags, you know?
I know someone that faked having a British accent with people under a different name for like a year when they were young.
Why?
Couldn't tell you.
That's fascinating.
Couldn't tell
My
you.
brother says that he did not play a Sonic the Hedgehog game, and it was a different game system than the one he used to play.
Okay.
Is Sonic the Hedgehog in Mario Kart?
It's not Mario Kart. The Fireball
My
Challenge.
brother is so used to me just randomly popping out of nowhere and be like, hey, here's a random and sort of specific question that I would hope that you can answer immediately. He's very tolerant.
It's nice of him, be tolerant of the questions. BJ347 says, "The Fireball Challenge is just natural selection. The problem is they're kids, and we don't want kids getting harmed. We don't want kids getting harmed. Those damn TikTok challenges."
Yeah. It's so hard because you can't stop them from doing dumb stuff, and every generation is going to come up with something. On the other hand, you want to be like, Team, is this the best use of your time and talents?
I mean, I've spent the last 25 years doing dangerous things on skates for fun. So
that's the thing. Anything could be risky, right? The people who are like, wow, how could they do the fireball challenge? Now go play football where you have huge risks of concussions. You know, you can hurt the body. It's just with a fire, it's like an unnecessary risk. I guess playing football isn't necessary either. I don't know. There's some kind of like with the fire, it seems even worse.
All right. Thought we lost the stream there for a second. We are good.
The stream's like, stop insulting sports.
Corey Anderson says, Cass Castle is my Real Housewives, meaning I like the goings on of the crew and behind the scenes. With that in mind, HCB, are you dating anyone?
Hold on. I'm going to just follow up really text. My brother says Sonic the Hedgehog is in Mario Kart in later editions.
Okay.
So I think I'm not crazy, but maybe I just am not really up to date on this. The question's am I dating anyone? Oh my gosh. Well, the thing is, like, I just don't have time to do anything. But I would be happy to announce to you all publicly as soon as I get engaged or get married.
There you go.
I think it's not something that I would talk about before then.
That's what Brett Cooper did, right?
Yeah, I have to make sure a man is really nice and trapped before I risk it. That's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I can't let anyone get away.
There you go. $20 super chat from Boosted Yogi says, same here. The wife and I met on Tinder 10 years and 2 kids later. That's awesome.
It's totally possible. Don't let if that's the best way for you to meet someone, do it. I just think that, like, you have to be really careful about what you're going in looking for.
I love it. Everyone's telling you that your brother's wrong. Your brother is wrong.
Hold on. I'll text him. Yeah. The chat... Well,
somebody says the fresh and fit method.
You are wrong. This is just me texting my brother.
He's not in Mario Kart. I think he might be thinking of Super Smash Bros.
Is it Super Smash? The thing is, like, my brother is the one who played video games in our house growing up, and like with my older cousins and stuff. So if he tells me he's like, I believe him over you guys. I don't know how to say, but I know him in real life.
That's okay. All right, DCNC says, Brett's Mocha on the dunk tank episode, but with her own dunk tank. Deal? Put the derps to work, am I right? I would love to dump the derpy cat into a tank of water, but I don't know if Olivia will allow that. That's not up to me.
What if the derpy cat likes water? Have you ever
Then I don't
it?
want to dunk it.
Have you ever given it the chance?
I don't. One of the cats responds to the spray bottle and one doesn't, though I never use it, so I don't know which one it is.
You don't even know which one?
I don't know which one. I do know that the fat cat, Chloe, is far superior, leaves you alone, doesn't bother you, independent, self-assured.
So did you have cats growing up? Why did you always hate cats?
I don't hate cats. I hate a cat. I hate a cat.
It's funny that your arch nemesis right now is a cat.
And I don't actually hate it. I just like, it's a meme now that's kept up for this long. Though I wish it would learn to close its mouth. Okay. Dave Collins says, how does an animated movie cost $200 million to produce? The technology is not new. There is no need to film on location or build sets. Doesn't make sense. Another critique of Wish is that it looked really, really bad and unfinished, which makes it even more seem like it's money laundering of some sort.
I don't want to reveal my ignorance with these things by blaming everything on money laundering, but it just feels like something is up. How can this mega corporation exist when everything loses money?
All right. Corey Anderson says, HCB, if it was called The Fast and the Furious by Shakespeare, would you have completed the series by now? Your hair looks great, by the way.
Oh, thanks, team.
He says, by the way, Brett blonde. Your hair looks great. By the way, I should be blonde.
You should be blonde. You should always be blonde. When Brett bleached his hair, it gave him such like a fun alternative punk rock vibe that I just thought was so cool. Not very many men could pull off bleached hair. The thing is, maybe I think I would have done it with more enthusiasm. The only problem is that it's like, it was like I was thinking in total it was over 24 hours worth of watch time.
Yes. Which
maybe I should have finished it by now. I get that it's getting late, but it's not over. We never said that I had to finish it, within the decade. I could do it eventually.
Rhaegar Targaryen says, if you are a millennial, many women have kids. Then you have to factor in if she is going to be worth the baggage, and who knows what kind of baggage you will get. This can be messy. It gives a man with no kids pause.
For sure. I mean, it's hard. And I also think if you're going to be in a kid's life, like, you have to be someone who's going to be there and be really devoted.
It's not something you can just enter into willy-nilly.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, my dad, my mom passed away when I was a kid, and my dad is remarried, and my stepmom is great. But I know it was not something that she was just like, oh, well, we'll see how it goes. Like, she took it seriously, and I appreciate that because, you know, she was entering into my childhood. So if you are dating someone who, or if you're like, if you don't think you could really be there for someone with kids, then yeah, definitely don't date someone who has kids. On the other hand, like, if you are open to having kids anyways, maybe that's good.
He wasn't the dad. He wasn't the stepdad. He was the dad that stepped up.
Kind of though. Like, that's the thing.
She wasn't the stepmom. She was the mom that stepped up.
Well, I mean, that's more Hallmarky than I do it, but like, she was there and she was nice. I liked her.
There you go. Okay, Charles II of Spain says the 90s Leonardo DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet was the worst defaming of the city of Mantua. Okay, that's the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet. Shane H. Wilder says if you can still, you can still watch Twister. Wink, wink. I do not endorse, the pirate life on here. I don't think I'm allowed to legally endorse the pirate life on here.
What if you did? What do you think would happen?
I have no idea. I deign to find out. Nobody124 sent $1 without a message. Thank you so much for that. Shane H. Wilder says, if you heard it here first, folks, Brett is trying to hook Hannah Claire up with his axe murderer friend.
Yeah, Brett's exclusively into me dating axe murderers. And I'm like, dude, come on. I want to have a future. And he's like, meh.
It was funny when you mentioned hiking earlier. There was this time when I was walking out and Hannah Claire was walking in, and she's like, a bunch of us are going hiking this weekend. You want to come? I'm like, nope. And I just kept walking. There
was a phase when I invited Brett to like all kinds of stuff. I'd be like, hey, a couple people are going to like go get dinner after work on Friday. You want to come? He'd be like, no. And then I stopped inviting him to things. And then we never hang out.
That's usually what happens.
No, it's okay. The thing is also, I think when you are on a show like this, like, I don't know how you feel about it, but like, I get drained. I do have to like be introverted and be alone for a little while. So sometimes when I'm like, do you want to come do another social thing? And you're like, I have live streamed every single day for a whole week. No.
That's what's his name talking about social battery on streaming. Yeah,
seriously.
Usually when I'm done. Okay, so there's two.
Also, Brett hates me is the thing.
No, that's not what it is.
That's why I stopped coming on Popular. Brett was like, get out of me here. You're the worst. Leave immediately.
Like this. No, there's two types of that. Some days it's like that. Mm-hmm. Most of the time when I'm done, it's actually like you're on kind of an energy high, and you have to like
you gotta do something.
Yeah. Yep. Usually that's what it is. All right. Rhaegar Targaryen says, Hannah Claire dating advice podcast confirmed.
I think it'd be cool to do a dating advice podcast. I feel as though, again, I will tell you guys, I'm not married. I'm not engaged. So I always feel as though it's important that like you listen to a dating advice podcast, because I get really interested in the psychology behind like attachment and like all that kind of stuff. I feel like you have to be listening to a podcast that reflects what you are looking for, right? So like if you're listening to a podcast by a bunch of single women, that's okay if you find it comforting. On the other hand, like I would rather listen to a dating advice podcast from someone who is married, because that's sort of my ultimate goal. Yeah. And so like for me, I could maybe host a dating advice podcast, but I think I would only want to talk to married people, because I think that might be more helpful.
When we have these types of topics, it's kind of flawed for me, because I just kind of look at everything as vaguely interesting, and I look at it through the lens of...
It's all vaguely interesting.
Like
that's the name of my podcast, Vaguely Interesting.
Honestly, yes. Honestly, yes. But like I look at these things, and it's kind of more... I look at it in more of an analytical sense, rather than actually feeling like I can find some type of truth or advice for someone. Mm-hmm. I just find the stats, the data, and the trends interesting.
There's a $20 super chat.
Yep. Not That John Stewart says, from Wikipedia, art from Mario and Sonic Olympics appears as background art, and the Sonic... amiibo could be scanned to obtain a Wii costume usable in-game. Sonic himself was not a playable character. Sonic has his own racing game.
Okay, but I looked it up, and he is a playable character in later versions of the Wii, it said on the internet. I'm not good at this, but...
It's an argument that will be had for the end of time.
And if I'm wrong, it's not going to cost me anything.
It's not the end of the world, that is true.
I'll just freak out, but no, it's fine.
All right. Charles II of Spain. Oh, no. The Manic Mustache says HCB is in favor of arranged marriage. Let's go.
I think arranged marriages could be good. I mean, part of it is that we don't have a culture that supports them, right? I think it's
not cohesive enough.
It's not cohesive enough. And I think you would need to be in a community that is supportive of arranged marriages, and understanding that like an arranged marriage looks slightly different than two people who met, in college and fell in love and did whatever. But I think they're like this strategic marriage is very fascinating. And I think that has been true for generations, right? People would marry people being like, hey, I know that you're coming into this amount of money and I've got some land, so this is going to work out.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Shane H. Wilder. Oh, no. Charles II of Spain says, has Hannah Claire seen The Lion in Winter?
I don't think so.
Okay. Shane H. Wilder says David Tennant did an amazing Hamlet with Patrick Stewart playing both his dad and uncle. This they did it at the Globe, then made it a mini series on the BBC. Okay, well, David Tennant is fantastic.
Yeah, he is great.
Everybody loves David, except for his ridiculous overacting in Harry Potter. His overacting in Harry Potter was like he was trying to channel Heath Ledger as the Joker, and it didn't work. Let me see here. The rest of them here. There it is. We're down here. Quite Blackpilled says, HCB, ask your brother if he's playing Helldivers 2.
Okay, I saw that one come in, so I did, and he just texted me back, and he sent me back for managed democracy, !
There you
and
go.
a nice cup of liber-tea. And then my brother said that Sonic is in Smash Bros.
Yeah. All right. DCNC says, HCB, ask your brother what he thinks about R&J. I don't know what that is. Oh, Romeo and Juliet.
Okay. They want to know.
What are your thoughts on Romeo and Juliet?
What do you think? I'll do this all day long.
Yep.
You think about Romeo and Juliet. So I'll pause. I'll let you know when I hear back from him.
TCNC says, HCB, what does your brother think about the border?
Oh, also they want
the southern border. I'm assuming they mean the southern border.
I'll just put border and see what he says. It's going to be like Borders Bookstore.
High Voltage 75 says, HC, according to IMDb, not sure about the accuracy, with this episode you have surpassed Dane for the most all-time guest appearances on PCC at 75.
Is that real?
Those numbers aren't accurate.
Oh,
Like, I'm not even listed on all the episodes, and there's never been an episode about it.
Well, that's crazy. I think because right as you read that, a crisis party went off. That must mean it's right?
It's probably true.
I don't think so, because I think it's about a year ago I stopped being able to do this regularly.
Yeah.
And then he kept going, so he must have surpassed me.
No, I mean he also stopped because he had.
Oh,
he's
the marketing team got bigger.
Yeah.
My brother says weird questions and then has not responded to them. But keep asking, guys. Maybe I'll just call him, hold him up to the phone.
All right. Let's see. Rhaegar Targaryen says, my stepmom was literally a supervillain. Glad your experience was better. What's with evil step-parents anyways?
Yeah, I think it depends on the way the person approaches the situation, right? And if you have someone who views, like I don't want to throw shade, but the guy who commented earlier being like, I don't know if I want that baggage, like, then you should probably not step parent or be involved with anyone because you view it inherently as something negative. Like if you look at someone else's kids as like a burden to your relationship, as opposed to just like a different type of family, then like you're bringing your own negativity into it.
Yep.
And also, some people aren't willing to step parent or date someone who has kids. The majority of the time, they meet one person who has a kid, and they love the kid, and they love the person, and it works out. Like, it's hard to say.
Tacty Platty says, wait, too late for People's Joker? I can retweet. I have retired the People's Joker from the show, guys. I have retired it.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
End of an era, I guess.
And Shane H. Wilder says, wait, is Borders book still around?
I think it is. But I also remember not thinking Borders
There's a Barnes & Noble over here.
And there's a Books A Million nearby.
Half-price books is better
The thing
anyways.
is, all of those corporate bookstores start just being like lined with stuff on the sides. It's like mostly toys and then like notebooks.
It's like comic book shops all became like Funko Pop dealers.
Yeah,
and,
well, what are we doing here?
Collectibles and stuff like this. I guess we wait for your brother's reaction or answer on this before we go off the air. Unless somebody wants to help me get to a fourth.
I don't know that he's responding. He said weird question, and I said no pressure to answer, and there's nothing left. I could call him, and be like, "Hey team, are you at work? You want me to
go for it?
Really?
Unless somebody wants to get me to a fourth crisis party, get me to a fourth crisis party, and we'll call him.
Yeah, if you guys have a fourth crisis party, I'll call my brother on air.
But we're not going to do that because we're about to get out of here. So, all right, we're still waiting for the answer. I will. You can check before we go to see if he texts back before then. But before we go,
I don't
guys,
think he's going to respond.
Yeah, okay.
I think he's tapped out.
All right, before we go, guys, would you hit the like button on this video, please, and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. Shane H. Wilder says, HPB or HCB?
What?
I don't know what HPB is.
I don't know either. It sounds insulting. But I'm HCB.
Yes, HCB. So, guys, hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to this channel, please, if you have not done so already. And HCB, thank you so much.
It's been fun to be here. I have missed it. It's been fun hanging out. Guys, Brett does so much hard work, so I appreciate all of you supporting him. It's been a good time.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b, on Twitter at HC and you can find me, well, the most important thing you can do is support Scanner, which is where I do the majority of my work, and I'm really grateful to be a part of that team. You can follow all of our work. You can go to scanner.com, scnr.com, I should say, or you can follow at TimCastNews on Twitter and Instagram. See the work from us. Chris Bertman, who appears from time to time on this show, he works with me and he's great. So we appreciate you guys checking out our stuff. And that's all I can think of off the top of my head. Brett, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And Shani Tweller says HPB is half price books.
Oh, you call me a half price book? Dude, that is insulting.
That is insulting. Guys, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, hit the like button on this video and subscribe. Please, if you have not already, we are past 108,000 subscribers. We are growing, and it is fantastic. So if you want to follow me, Instagram and Twix, at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. The show is here 5 days a week for your viewing pleasure. Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, noon Pacific. Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify if you would prefer to listen rather than watch this show. And if you want to follow the show on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook and not TikTok because we were banned, at Pop Culture Crisis, and on Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. Guys, we will be back with another episode tomorrow. We'll see you then. Bye.